Vibrate
There you
on
go.
silent. Okay, good. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, no problem. We're on now. So
Okay.
sorry everybody that is tuning in. Nobody's tuned in yet, but we're running a little bit behind. I made a big mistake today and mistakenly told Flavio that we're starting at 12 p.m., which is not correct. So we're gonna start and we're gonna get going. So joining me right now is Pat Steward, one of Canada's shining musicians. He's played with everybody: Matthew Good, Bryan Adams, Jan Arden. You were just saying, I think, right?
Yeah.
You were just saying we were just talking about cymbals and what ended up on the record and stuff like that. So thanks for coming to hang out.
It's awesome to be here. Yeah.
I mean, we've been talking about stuff anyway. So we're talking about Jan Arden's record. When did that happen?
Oh boy. The one that we were just talking about
The Zeppelin
was, yeah. You know what? Sorry, I should have that date exactly. I think it was 2017. Maybe we recorded that.
Okay.
It might have been shortly after Flavio and I did that ToonTrack thing. I think it was, kind of like this time of year, kind of December, November, in about 2017. Anyway, yeah.
Cool.
I say Led Zeppelin 4 because they actually, it was awesome. I was doing entirely other things, and then the phone rang and go, "Hey, can you come down tonight? I know you're supposed to start tomorrow morning." I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, we're actually ready to go." Okay. So I go down and it's at the Warehouse Studio in Vancouver, Bryan Adams' place.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful facility. And so I go down there and there's drums. Flavio has teched up a kit. He's got this beautiful, it's a 72 Gretsch. Amazing sounding drum kit.
Right.
And he, so the gear's out in the room there, and I come into the control room, and Bob goes, "Oh, within seconds, okay, well, here's what we're looking. This is what we're going to work on first. So, grab a piece of paper, or something, and write an arrangement, because that's usually how we do it. He'll just play these demos that he's done, and then they replace the drums, and then they keep some things, and then they replace, and add other things like a real guitar, real bass, and stuff. Right. But this piece of music comes on, and I find some music definitely is a color. It's got a color to it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes maybe you're influenced because of the album cover or something. Like, although Eddie Van Halen calls it the Brown Sound, that first album, when I think of some of those songs, the cover of that album is black. And there's something about some of those songs, for example. But anyway, this song of Jan's is playing, and all I can imagine is fierce green stormy ocean, and there's a boat going like this, because it is this loop. This music is so heavy. I'm going, we've done some Jan Arden recordings before, but this is so heavy. That's why I said Zeppelin 4, because I just couldn't believe it. And I'm smiling. I'm looking at Bob, and he's like, "What? Everything okay?" I'm going, "This is insane. I love it. It's going to be amazing." Then you go out to the room, put it on the phones, and they've pretty much dialed up the sounds and everything. And he had these Murat drill. Is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm.
I'd never even heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're the second person to mention it. You're the only two people I know that have them, and they're bizarre looking. And he's always, usually we're playing Zildjians, Sabians, whatever. They might want a certain thing, but I'm a Sabian guy, and I just bring in my stuff, and he's generally fine with it. Or it might be, hey, I got these certain hi-hats I want to try, or whatever. He's really, guys will be like, lately I'm really into an acrolite, or I'm really into these hi-hats. So, but I look at these two, I think it was 2 crash cymbals and a ride and some hats, these cymbals, and they're crazy looking. I'm like, but they look like they were made in a quarry by a Turkish dude.
Yeah.
And I'm always for that. I love old K's, just the smoky sound. And the fact that more people are using that in contemporary music is that's the better for me. This is like, it's common to go find a 21-inch thin hand hammered crash cymbal nowadays.
Yep.
Thanks to Chris McHugh and people like that, right?
Oh man, the new HH complex stuff from Sabian is like amazing. And I think that's what McHugh is kind of pushing that. I think Dave Elitch is pushing that kind of stuff too. But the Murat stuff is gorgeous. And it was, from what I understand, Murat helped design the Byzant series for Meinl. If you know that series of cymbals.
Yes, I do.
So,
Yeah, those are amazing too.
yeah, so I think Murat helped them design that, and then left and started Murat Drill. And
It's cool that a company like Meinl, which is, I always thought it was sort of a, you know, a Paiste is a style of engineering. And I always thought Meinl was similar. And for years they were just all machine made. And now that they have a line of cymbals that can compete with, you know, AGOPS and Istanbul and all that kind of thing, that's awesome. Like all those companies. And then so Paiste even has to get on board. They even have some things that are thin, you know?
Yeah.
So
Paiste stuff's great. I mean, that's, I kind of came up listening to Vinny play all the time. And I mean, I think he was Zildjian at some point, but you know, all that Paiste stuff ends up on records all the time because they sound great. They're like to me, they're like a kind of a rock contemporary cymbal.
They work. There's certain guys that have always used them, you know? And it's interesting, you know, Phil Rudd, there's another guy, you know?
Yeah. You ever get to meet Phil or work with him out in Vancouver when they're tracking? No. And
I'm a big fan, and you know, prior to all that madness that went down with him and the band and stuff, I had this group with some guys out here, and it was called Bond Red, and all we did was anything from Highway to Hell and back. The guy that runs it is old East Van punk, and he's just like, I don't like that Brian Johnson guy. I'm like, that's fine. There's some really great songs and great riffs, but that's fine. If you're not into that, we'll just do all this other stuff. And it is blistering fast, you know, and you're learning these songs from the first, when I was growing up, like Power Age, it's probably something like the 4th album or something, but it's the one right before Highway to Hell. Those two are my favorites. And there's some amazing playing. The way they mix the record on Power Age it's all Malcolm on the left side. And it's, so if you want to learn some about rhythm guitar playing, you listen to that record and you crank it over on the left.
Oh yeah.
You know, and you just, it's it's all about him and Phil doing this thing together, you know, like a lot of bands, like the Rolling Stones, but like Booker T and the MGs too, you know, so as Keith Richards called it, the weave. You know, and it is, you got to weave together and it's got to be this thing. And anyway, AC/DC, they're that. And, you know, I would love to have, you know, met the guy along the way somewhere. At the times that they were recording here and stuff, you know, I think it was probably, I don't know, different time. Who knows what people are like. So that's one guy. I mean, I don't think I'll meet him, but you can still have that childhood, that thing where you just own the record. You go, wow, what if, or whatever you know, when you're in grade 10 or something and just learning to play.
Definitely. I mean, I think they were just out there the last couple of years recording their new record at Warehouse. I'll have to maybe ask Flav about that and see if he he could work on that session, because he works for all kinds of people, right?
Yeah, he didn't. I mean, if he did, and he's, you know, there's all kinds of, like Mike Fraser's a good friend of ours, and he hires Flavio sometimes, but I think they have all their own crew, and it's so hush hush.
Right.
There's a guy, he's a rock writer. He was written for the Georgia Straight, it's a newspaper, and he's online as well nowadays. And Steve Newton, and he's just all about rock. And a friend of his, because I texted him, I go, what's that thing you just tweeted? He said, my friends were walking down, you know, like it's sort of like whatever, Granville Street, the mall there. Yeah. And his buddy is going by, and he just went, oh my God, that I just passed Phil Rudd and the nephew, Steve Young. They were walking up and they were just lighting a smoke or something, right? He's going, are you kidding? He goes, oh, I know what Phil Rudd looks like, or whatever. It was that. Yeah. And then someone else that lives in an apartment across from the warehouse it's all about smokes with these guys, took another photo, and it kind of appeared in the paper or somewhere, and it's a bit hazy, but you're going, yeah, that's Angus. That's Brian. And it was weird. It was a weird thing. Well, I guess they were doing the record, but it was, meanwhile, you were going, what's going on with Angus and Axl Rose? What's all that about? It was just shortly after all that hubbub. And this kind of thing just kind of happened at the studio, and it left, you know?
Right.
Yeah. But I got to say, I listened to the new one just a little bit, like it came out and I went, oh, I got to check it. And it made me go, the album before it is called Rock or Bust.
Yep.
And I don't know, I love it. Like for the riffs and sort of the songwriting and the types of rhythm guitar things that are going on, that stuff really gets me excited. It gets exciting if it's really great.
Yeah.
And Malcolm Young Angus and Steve. So that was the first album they did with their nephew Steve. Right. And it's a really good record. And I don't know what to say about the new one yet because I haven't really checked it. But and I really haven't listened to a lot of their stuff in all the years since between Back in Black and the one from like whatever it was, 2016 or 17 called Rock or Bust.
Right.
So that's my little sales pitch on that one.
That's great. I mean, I listened to the new one, and the first single that came out, I think it's called "Shot in the Dark." Yeah, "Shot in the Dark." And the first time the drums come in, it's just unmistakably Phil Rudd, and it's exactly how I remember AC/DC being. And I'm not that old. I didn't really grow up listening to AC/DC, but there's that thing that Phil does that's just like this is it. This is where it is.
Yeah.
Get on board, or you're gonna fall off. It's so crazy. Yeah,
I have my friend Craig. We play in the band The Odds, my other main project. He's a guitar player, and he's always doing things and saying stuff to me like I wouldn't even consider. And he's going, it's all about the hi-hats. And he's always hi-hat, like when we talk about Booker T and the MGs, he goes, man, when Al Jackson plays, how he lays a snare, or when he plays, although he plays ride a lot. But he talks about Phil Rudd that way too. Like it's about the rhythm guitar and the hi-hat relationship. And I'll give him that. I don't really know. I go with what the beef of the kick and snare and the rhythm guitar are doing. That's where I go. But he's sort of a scientist of hi-hats, Craig. So you guys met, didn't you?
We did, yeah, briefly.
So he's into that sort of thing. So
that's cool. I think that it's funny how we all kind of think about our relationship with different members in a band differently. For me, it's like it's me and the bass player, really. Yeah. For me,
it really is. It's without question, it bass and drums. That's the thing. And when maybe I've gotten used to it, and I know like you just sit down and play. I've sat down with some guys I don't even know, I've never played with, or even sat in helping a friend at a high school or something. And if somebody knows what's going on, they're on it. They're as good as far as locking in and playing in time with a drummer, Yep. So I've gotten spoiled and early on and used to it. But so now maybe that's why, the guitar is always exciting to me though, too, like that. Sometimes you got a demo of something and you go, oh my God, this is going to be great. And then you do it. And by the time the artist has mixed the song and everything, that guitar is either gone or it's so far back. I'm like, can we mix that louder? That's an awesome part.
Yeah. But I don't know if you've kind of like based your part around that guitar and played appropriately, it just changes the whole aesthetic of the tune and the feel, and it's not comfortable. I mean, we could get into sample replacement and stuff too, which we probably will with the Superior Drummer thing, but I find that the sample replacement thing now is quite out of hand. People using programmed drums on tunes on the radio, and it just feels it's too sterile. It's too sterile these days.
You mentioned in an email, we were talking about Chris McHugh, because there's so much I don't even know that he did. And you said, he played on Waste and Gas, that song, which is great. It's a fun song and it blows up and everything. And there might be some songs on some of his stuff that isn't a guy playing. I don't know for sure, but I have been hearing some stuff out of Nashville. There's another guy out of Vancouver. I did some work with him, and we're playing at a hockey game, and in between takes or something, I go, this is a great song, man. I go, who played drums on it? He goes, oh, it's just programmed. And I think, probably in the case of that, I'll bet you it was like, well, I'm an up and coming Canadian artist, and there's X amount of money. Right. Well, it's probably better to get so-and-so on guitar or so-and-so to mix it and go with programmed drums. Right. I get it. Because it becomes down to money. But people like this, I thought it was a guy playing. It wasn't. There's a lot of stuff I heard "Can't Touch Us" on the radio yesterday, and then I go, and nowadays I'll listen to something like that I mostly never really cared about, but it's kind of fun. And I'm listening to it and going, okay, every 2 bars it does this fill. This is definitely 88 or whenever that song was.
Yep.
You know, it's programming.
Yeah.
And you know, some songs, it works good. It's like every 2 bars, they do the exact fill, the whole song, you know, that works for that kind of thing.
Totally.
But some of the stuff that we're talking about, I hear some things I have to learn people's songs and do a gig. And I find out it's programming. I'm surprised, you know, and it's done well, because it's like, because a lot of times sometimes guys program stuff and you're going, okay, a drummer would never play that. I mean, the good thing about that is sometimes people have cut something I played.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people will cut a thing.
Yep.
And this is the classic one, is like, you know, backo doom da, and you would go here, but they went, oh yeah, and they cut it. And the chorus goes into like a 4 on the snare thing, and it goes da 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 da. Right. When I first heard that, it's on a thing I did with Matt Good. I went, okay, I'm going to learn that. That's hard. I don't even know how to do that. Right. And apparently I did that. So, you know, when people, once in a while, there's a little treat. I was talking to Flavio about that. Like if somebody does that thing like that, and you go, well, I wouldn't naturally do that, or a drummer doesn't do that, but it's possible. I just never thought of that, you know?
Right.
But that double hit there, man, depending on the tempo. And anyway.
Big. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I think that there's a place for program drums that can be done really well. I don't necessarily buy the you know, the budget thing too much, because you know, everybody like yourself, like myself, we all have these spaces and we can do drums for people for relatively not a lot of money. I mean, if you're tracking a single.
Well, let's watch. Hey, let's hope that maybe COVID. There's a lot of things that are like you said, is reprioritizing and stuff, and maybe it'll come to that. It's like, man, you're doing country music that comes from a certain tradition, and it's like, although they've been doing these sort of huge production, there's giant, massive rock. I don't know. People are always saying, oh, it's changing. Yeah, so and so is really old school, and I'll hear it. And I'll go, well, it's only slightly less bro country than a year ago. But you know, when somebody is really doing it, and you go, oh, I thought that was a Waylon Jennings track from '75. You go, I know. No, that guy just made that album last month. You know what I mean? Right. I want that to happen.
Yeah. Definitely.
Because everyone grew up with that, and like any artist now, their dad or their granddad played that music for them, and they heard it growing up. But the country music that they play now is it's more of it's a big rock show, right? And it's awesome, and it's fun, and it's so fun to play that music, that kind of thing live. But also, speaking musically, wouldn't it be fun if somebody was out there, a guy or a girl, and you go, man, listen to that amazing character to that vocal, that voice. And it sounds like Waylon Jennings, 1975.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, there are artists that are doing that. And I think it's swinging back that way. You know, people like, Chris Stapleton's the first one that comes to mind all the time, or the Brothers Osborne, even. It's not really like country. It's a little more outlaw kind of, you know, grungy country, but it's still all very real. And it just sounds and feels so good. There's also a band called Hill Country that a friend introduced me to not too long ago, and it's very it's pretty shiny, pretty like produced, but it's all very real. And you know, harmonies are great, all the parts are amazing, the engineering is fantastic, the playing is great, but it's kind of going back to, I don't know how I describe it. I don't know. It's all very acoustic and like real country, as real old country as you can get for like 2020. But I think
that's awesome.
It's shifting back that way. I think, you know, radio is still a bit of a tough nut to crack, because they just want the tailgate beer, you know, party tunes.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Things like Spotify and Tidal are great for new old music like that, I think.
Discovering just random stuff, right? That's the great thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I love that about what we do with music. You know, you're always there's so much stuff that I haven't heard. You're always learning new stuff, and there's there's always new information coming in, and it's always there's going to be younger people that, oh, well, I listened to this and this, and I'm like, I don't even know about that, or I've heard of that, and go, oh, I'll send you something, and you got Spotify or whatever. So I love the constant, everyone's giving and taking and sharing, and there's no sort of ageism in it. It's just, hey, we all like music.
Yeah.
Have you heard this? So that's a good thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is great. We're still waiting on Flavio. I feel terrible about that.
That's okay. Do you after these things? Do you go in and you're gonna do this now? You're gonna like do some chops. Can you do that with these?
Yeah, I can, but I don't.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
I choose to just let it do it. I mean, if something horrible happened, I'd probably cut some stuff. But no, right. This is it's just meant to be just a
hanging out.
I don't like the overproduced kind of like. Remove all the silence kind of thing. That's not
right.
I don't know. There's a drum podcast or a music podcast called I'd Hit That.
Yeah.
You check. Yeah, I think we talked about that where, the guy sits in his car for an hour or two with like Zach Danziger and they just shoot the shit and it sounds terrible and it's, you can hear sirens going by and
right. That's kind of cool. Yeah, that's pretty real.
Yeah,
so,
it's awesome. And it's just like it's a gold mine of just information that's not like, hey, what sticks do you use? Or, what drums did you use on this record? And it's just like life stuff, talking about stories just like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, I thought of this because we were talking about Phil Rudd. Mm-hmm. And so I'm affiliated with Sonar Drums. Mm-hmm. And Phil's been with them forever. Yeah. And so they make a drum. It's called the Phil Rudd signature model. I think when that whole kind of situation went down with him a few years ago, they may have changed their priorities, and they might have. I don't know if they're still releasing it or what, but I'll tell you, man, it's an amazing drum. It's chrome over brass. Mm-hmm. It's a 5-inch snare. I mean, like in my life, I grew up playing metal snares, and as soon as I had a Ludwig. For years, for a good part of 30 years now, my number one go-to drum is that one that's sitting on your set right now. Oh, yeah. Because you can get depth with that. If you want it low, just tune it low. They sound great. Yeah. If you need it, if you want to go way, way up there, 90s, or you want it ringing, kind of ska or whatever, it does it all. It does everything. And, some days you're like, oh, what if you woke up and all you had was that? You go, I'd be fine. You get all these other things and extras. I recently got rid of some stuff because I'm like, okay, it's cool that I have that. I never use it. Right. I mean, I'd like it to be worth some crazy amount of money. Wouldn't that be cool? And then, whatever, I'll buy a new bike. But anyway, the Phil Rudd snare, and it's not really expensive. So if there's one out there, or if your listeners, if anybody sees one or knows of one, you should go check it out. Like I do to that the same that I would do with that Ludwig, and it comes with die cast top and bottom. I take the top off because I just play rim shots all the time, and it just I used to do that with a Black Beauty in the 80s, and oh, you got to do that. Oh, okay. I'm like, well, man, I'm going through sticks twice as fast. It right. just kills everything, right? So I just I took a regular hoop and put it on the top of it, but it's pretty nice, man. And a brass drum is always going to do good things.
Totally, that one's been on my list for a really long time.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I went on Sonar's website the day before yesterday to look at what they had, and I did that CP Holiday Train thing, and on your baseline list is Sonar drums, and they had the AQ1 kit, and then I think it was just like a ProLite steel snare drum. But in my mind, it was like, I need to look at the Phil Rudd drum again because I should get one. But they don't make it anymore. It's off.
I know there's got to be one sitting in a store somewhere, and it's just somebody, and it hasn't been bought yet or whatever. But one year I did the Train, and I had asked Scott Atkins. He's the Sonar Canada rep. Amazing guy. Yeah. He got so much stuff done. And so, and he's a big fan of trains. I go, well, guess what? If you want to come and ride from it leaves Montreal and it goes to a town that's about, it's about a 4-hour ride on the train, because you do a couple of stops in that. But, and he goes, well, that's great. That's where my mom lives. I'll just get off in Smiths Falls. And okay, cool. So he comes on the next day and he goes, oh, hey, I brought you something. And he brings his box out, and it's the Phil Rudd snare. And I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome.
Oh no!
So
No
yeah,
way.
so
They
I'm
just
like,
gave it to you.
I had to wait because it came with a factory head, which is a sort of ambassador, but that's not going to work.
Yeah.
I gotta use an emperor because,
Oh,
and
okay.
then it's just it's going to last for the whole show on for the whole run on that train. I mean, man, you play a lot. You play like about one time I counted it was about 82 shows in 3 weeks. Well, they're not hour shows. They're
Yeah.
they're mostly 30-minute stops, and you play. You come out and you play between 10 and 20 minutes, and then they bring up a rep from the food bank locally, and maybe the mayor, and then a rep from the train, and they come up and they say, well, I'm present to the town of Red Deer or wherever the town is, and excuse me, one of these big giant checks for X amount of dollars, $5,000 for your food bank.
Right.
And the holiday train thing is amazing because it's all about giving back, and it's all about the food bank, getting money to the food bank. I mean, we're having so much fun because we're meeting people. Like we got the odds with Dallas Smith and Darren Savard. And those guys I already knew, but the rest of my band didn't know them. And within a day, it was just so much fun for 3 weeks of hanging with those guys. And meanwhile, you pull into a town, and when you got a guy like Dallas on the train, I've done it a lot of times, and you go, oh, he's really pulling in numbers, a certain demographic in a certain size city,
Mm-hmm.
and so that, which is great, which is why the train does that, because you got all these Dallas Smith fans coming in, and everyone's bringing either a bag of perishable items or money, and they take it to the food bank truck. Plus, and in Thunder Bay, there's like 5,000 people there. Like it's amazing how much. So they raise so much money in 3 weeks.
That's great.
And yeah, it's super cool.
What a good cause. I got can you see that?
Yeah.
Pop up. Harry Gregg. I don't know if you remember Harry. I think he said he ran into you a bit out here.
Out here?
Yeah.
You know what? No, I don't. Sorry, Harry. I'm gonna have a peek. Oh, I recognize you. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
he runs a studio out here. He's great. He's really good.
In where are you? Edmonton, right?
Edmonton, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
And here's Bill talking about the Phil Rudd snare.
It's one of the few. Yeah, chrome brass. Yeah. It stays in tune. He's saying.
Yeah. Oh, here you go.
Oh, right.
Wild.
Okay. Yeah. That was super fun.
Yeah.
Sonar had this sort of technology in there. I mean, it's different than like with an old drum, like a Ludwig. When you're changing heads, you're like boom, boom. You go around there, and then you do this business, and you're getting that, and that boom, that head's off.
Yep.
The Sonar stuff it's not. I mean, if you do the drill thing, you go around a bit. Do it even. Make sure you do it evenly, and that's the fast way. But it's hard because they have this sort of. I think it's called tune lock. Yeah. I think it's a nylon sleeve that's within the threads. So when I play that drum, I don't have to put lug locks on. But I've been putting lug locks on drums since I don't know. The first time I ever saw them, I think it was in about '82. And I can't play a snare drum, which if I'm recording, it's usually a Ludwig, and sometimes a Phil Rudd. But whatever it is, you got to put lug locks on there, because if you're hitting rim shots in that, it detunes. That's just what happens. So.
Right. Yeah.
Nature.
No, totally. I'm sending Flav another link here.
Okay.
Good start to a Friday here. Yeah. So you hit pretty hard then, is what you're saying.
I have a lot for years. The last 9 months, not so much.
Yeah.
But I've done. I don't know. I do a couple. For a while, there was a couple sessions a week in the summer, and it's just kind of slowed down, and that's fine. A couple things canceled because there was a bit of a COVID blow up, and the artist I was going to work with, it was like, he's probably like, well, I got kids at home and my mom's in the picture, and I'm not going to go risk that. There's no, that's why I didn't do the Calgary trip, because I went, it's not about the money. It's about making I got some people in my bubble. I got to watch out. Yeah. And the stuff that was going on that I was seeing from BC, what was going on in Alberta, or a couple of friends that had done flights recently, and he's going, I couldn't believe what I saw in the flights or in the VIP lounge and it's like, he's like, you're supposed to wear a mask to get in the airport. So why are you not wearing it? And you're in the Air Canada lounge, just stories about people,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you just got, no amount of money is worth the risk, And then I realized, I go, you know what, for you to just go there, or somebody in Alberta, and I'm glad it was you and Travis on bass, for you guys to just be in your world and just go over there, do that. And then whatever you did, went home or spent the night probably at that place. Right.
Yeah.
And it was just, there's risk, man.
There is totally. And, I was super happy to do it. It was fun. Flavio's here now, so I'm going to pop him in here.
Oh my God. Woo!
Oh, man.
What's up?
It's like that Will Ferrell skit, hey guys, the party can start. The Williams showed up.
Man,
Hey.
I'm telling you.
Hey guys, you want to get it down off the shed? Yeah. You know that skit? So good to see you, brother.
Good to see you. Hey, sorry, guys.
That's all right.
I totally got my merge wixed this morning.
That's totally on me. And in the email that I sent, it was a copy and paste thing that was like 12 p.m. for somebody in Nashville the last time.
Oh, I got you.
So that's totally on me.
You know what?
Sorry.
It's no problem, man. The way my life is going right now, it's like the that emoji, the tornado. That's all I send people.
Yeah.
I just when you're
hey Flav, how's it going?
Pat, me and Pat. Well, I'll exchange stuff with Pat, and it'll just be like, hey, like crickets, and I'll just send him back the tornado. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh my
God.
Oh God. No.
And then obviously, I was here for 10 minutes, and I'm in my studio, but I don't really on this computer. I only have like Safari and nothing else on it, so I had to update Chrome and all that, and then it still wasn't connect. So I'm like, it's just not happening. But
it's very chilled in here. But I had the same thing. I don't really use Chrome unless it says use it, because I hit the link and it went to Safari and it said no, and I went, oh right. So I do that thing, and then it opened a thing right away going, do you want this to automatically update? And I was like, well, no, that's my choice. But what if it breaks down in the middle of our chat? Oh well, we'll see what happens.
Chits and chats. Here we are.
That's right.
Yeah, we're here.
Sorry, guys, but also hello.
Problem.
Hello.
I'm sure you guys are still with Pat, just still exchanging a few hellos and a couple of cool things, right? Hey Pat, I like the beard. It's back.
It's back. Yeah, I gave it a little trim for you.
For me? Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
The nice Christmas tree.
I don't know. It gets a little. I know. Yeah, it's my green screen. I'm actually sitting out in the front yard. It's raining out.
It's my green screen.
Christmas tree.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, man. You look great too. You always look good. Look at what's going on.
Look, I shaved for you guys. It's Friday. I've got
I knew
pattern now where I'm just shaving on Fridays. That's it.
Is that what you do?
You got a haircut too.
Yeah, I got a little trim.
Yeah.
Brendan, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. I'm really good. And for anybody that's watching, Flavio plays drums for Dallas Smith and has played with Bif Naked and Brazilian other people.
Yeah, the list is there. It keeps moving forward, onward and upward kind of thing, right?
Tell that to Dallas.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He's not watching. He's got a fresh baby. That's for sure. He's
that's right. Yeah.
I wouldn't expect a non-drummer to tune in and enjoy what's
happening.
Exactly.
Where's that love? Come on. How are you, man? You're keeping busy. Everything's going good with you, huh?
Yeah, things are good. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into this. I've been working for a company called Session Wire out of Vancouver.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to get hooked up on that.
Yes.
You're the man for that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah.
Kevin's cooking.
Kevin's great.
Man.
Kevin is great. Robin's great. Colin's great. I mean, the whole crew is awesome. And, we're working on the new version for January, and, 2021 is going to move crazy.
Man, that's definitely for you, Flav, because you're doing amazing
you know what?
stuff.
I did this is a few things that got to, move ahead. I could see how advantageous that would be to be able, because now when I'm doing sessions from home, it's like FaceTime, a debrief, send the track. Session Wire, it'd be just working at the same pace, right?
Yep,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, you get real-time feedback. You finish a take. Hey, can you change this thing? Do another
take. Because that's
Done.
The trickiest thing I'm finding from working from home is kind of like, obviously, like you're engineering yourself, you're teching yourself, then you're producing yourself, and like you're kind of like vetting yourself. And we're so used to just somebody saying like, no, don't like that. Yep, like this. Change this. Do this. Like being directed the whole way.
Yep.
So people, you would say they're pretty cool with, like, you do a track because you know what a good song needs.
Yeah, I hope.
So you send it, and they're generally going, "Hey, that's awesome."
For the most part, I'm sending just like full takes of things, and you know, hopefully it covers the whole area. Hopefully, like, you know, you have the foresight to like, okay, maybe I should just try this verse on the hats this way or this.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you know, yeah, I think it, you know, the song will tell you what to play, but sometimes it's still nice getting that direction, especially the guys like us. We don't, you know, just whatever you want, right? Like, we'll serve it however best we can, you know. It's not more like, well, I don't know, I stuck it this way because the drums are making, you know, it's like, no, tell me what you want kind of thing. So
exactly.
Session Wire, that'd be great to get into that for sure.
Yeah, totally. It just speeds up the whole process. I mean, you have a track, you know, now it might take you an hour and a half, 2 hours back and forth listening to MP3s, Dropboxing, but you know, you could, you know, cut a tune for somebody in a half hour.
And you're done. It's not a day.
Yeah, 2 or 3 takes
or like waiting
whatever.
for the next day for recalls or something like that.
Yeah, you have to leave all your stuff set up exactly how you did it in case they want to edit things or.
Yeah. Okay, well that's another one for us to get on for sure, Brennan.
Yeah. We'll do that 12 p.m. next Friday. Then.
So what are you guys chatting about? What's going on?
We've been talking about all kinds of stuff. I mean, I think that the talk before we started the live stream was pretty good too. I want to get back into some of that stuff, but you know, we were talking about AC/DC mainly, I think.
Oh, come on. This is me and Pat, like probably weekly about like
something's got to come up. Yeah.
Phil Rudd, Back in Black, or I'm like working out, crushing a workout, and I'll screenshot like, oh man, did you check out that riff? And like it just comes back. And you know, you want to talk AC/DC, Pat's got, it's like in there. So you watch Pat play, it's in there. So,
yeah, we were just talking about something came up, I don't know, and then Phil Rudd, and then talked about that snare drum, and we talked about just the relationship between what he does with Malcolm Young on rhythm guitar, you know, that, and in any bands like that just those relationships, and in bass.
How many times have we jonesed about just like the dedication of, especially just that rhythm section, but like, you know, rest in peace with Malcolm, just the dedication to the eighth note, and just how disciplined they all are at making it rock. And, you know, me and Pat have spent time with Mike Fraser, a guy who's worked with AC/DC before. And like, when you go down this rabbit hole and you start talking, you know, he's tracked them and worked with them. It's just like, they rewrote that playbook, you know, and and as drummers, you know, we're just chasing that sound still. Those toms, that snare, you know. I had to track something once for Mike, and like he was like egging me on for like, Phil Rudd, because he, you know, he hears it, and like to try and get the hats the way that he kind of like makes them dance and groove and stuff. It's just like, it's a masterclass. And you know, when you're young, you don't really, you know, you play along to AC/DC because you feel like you can. Because you can learn, you can play that straight eighth rock groove. But then when you get older and you actually try and like channel what the heck is going on there, it's some of the hardest stuff around. It's like, it's a masterclass. It's actually a masterclass.
So
I would listen to. Oh yeah.
No, go ahead. No, sorry.
Oh, just what Flav was saying about the hi-hats there again, because I was saying that's what Craig Northey said was about. You know, it's a relationship. It's about the hi-hats for him, for where he's going to sit with a groove. But there was something on maybe Highway to Hell or the album before it called Power Age. And I was listening to it. I might even mention it to you, Flav. And it's like you listen and you go, you know what? Listen to that. That's a guy. He didn't go through the 80s like we did, 80s and 90s. He's writing the book. And he's not really guy in the 70s, you know, late 70s. I mean, that music got heavier, and he's probably harder hitting than whoever was in pop bands 5 years before him. But he's not really what we do. Like you get what it is you get excited, and sometimes that's not right. It's not right for the song. I mean, it's like, oh my god, I'm excited, and you're like, you're like, is that okay? Sorry, I was hitting a bit hard there. I'm listening to what Savard's playing, you know, and you get stoked, right? But and listen to him playing the hats, and you just get this picture of about a 1974 Zildjian hi-hat, and he's just playing it. He's playing at the level it needs to be played at. He's not doing anything like, you know, I was, you know, like I said, like we got the 80s and the 90s behind us, and all these things that we got excited about. And that's why the average drummer now, you know, a 12-year-old kid is probably pretty hard hitting, you know, and that really didn't exist then. I don't think that music is so powerful. But I think if you
right, it's like the sense of these guys, they had this whole, like, you know, the way they EQ'd themselves too, like getting that snare right up the gut, you know, in the right spot, you know, it's like, and the kick and yeah, that EQ, that balance. But yeah, Phil, man, if you play any rock, or you enjoy any rock music, and Phil Rudd is not in your top 5, then you're not playing rock music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, you know, that's how I feel. It's kind of like, it's got to be there. And AC/DC on a whole, like, and let's, you know, I'm glad that we started with this, with the one that I chimed in with Back in Black.
Well, we started with it, left it, and now we're back to it, which is even better. You showed up.
I went through, when I got the first cassette, I put my family through it so terribly that it was all that I listened to on like 11. And then
in the family stereo room.
Oh yeah, and then when we got my dad's Safari van, and then my sisters were in the car, my mom, you know,
Back in Black.
I was such a little turd about it that I would not let anything else play, and it was like anywhere we went, it was Back in Black, and you know, probably to the most annoying degree, but I just was like hypnotized with it, you know. Totally. And I still love it. Like me, I can say me and Pat will still, like, you know, Jones out about it.
Man, that album is 40 years old, and it still sounds appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's talk about, you know, just for a second, that's Brian Johnson's debut record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like,
so
and AC/DC was a powerhouse, was like, you know, doing its thing and was amazing just before that. Like, are we ever going to see something like that again? Never.
Yeah.
You know, guy
when you start
and just rewrite the whole thing. It's just like, what a recipe.
So talking to, you know, guys like Mike Frazier, what is Phil Rudd to him?
Perfect.
Yeah, but
you've had more. I haven't had those talks. You have.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, like, what does he use to describe Phil's playing that you can latch onto then?
It's always about a groove, you know. And when Mike's listening back, and you know, Mike's, you know, he's a mega, right, and his ears are just like, he's a wizard. You know, and it's very simple what Mike does, even though it's very complex. He keeps it really simple. You know, even just the mic position and the tuning of the drums. Like, what I've learned working with Mike tuning drums is, man, it's like he makes you hear everything he hears, right? And he hears everything. You can't get away with anything. But what Phil does, and, you know, it's that feel. And just, even if you're playing and it's a good take and it doesn't groove, he'll let you know about it. Or, you know, vice versa, or the inconsistency, something. For Phil, for Mike, Phil is just like that groove, that shake, that bounce, that consistency, you know, the placement of the crashes, like the whole thing. And when Mike's coaching you along in a take, you know, he'll use that. He'll be like, come on, man. Like, you know, like Phil, you know, like Phil. And you have to, like,
so
even
awesome.
though, you know, you got to get that thing.
Yeah.
But he makes you go there, makes you hear it. But for I'd say, you know, and Mike is a rocker, and Mike understands and lives and breathes rock and like cranking things. And he understands that kind of air. So when he's talking like that, you're listening, you know, and you're forced to, because if you feel like you're in a take or something like that, and you're like, I think I'm doing my thing, he'll get more out of you in it, you know. He will, and then you'll come back to the take and listen back, and you'll be like, holy crap, like, yeah, I thought I was there, but he actually knows, you know. And he's worked with them so much, I think, too. So for Mike, I think it's, you know, he's open. But that's a benchmark, you know, even in guitar players, when he's like working with guitar players, and he brings, you know, a lot of the times he's bringing that sound that he works with AC/DC, Mike's amps and his, you know, the whole thing. So he knows what he's listening for, you know, and if you're getting Mike on your record, or to mix your record, or to especially engineer your record, you know, he's bringing that, you know, he's bringing that.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah.
You better bring that kind of, that chapeau, you know?
Right. Gotcha.
You know? And they just love him.
We got a question.
Oh,
It's for
Oh,
both
I
you
see.
guys.
This is so cool. Look at this. Do you feel certain
Yeah.
drums and cymbals need to be hit hard to reveal their character? Huh, that's a good question.
There might be some, I don't know, like what's that bell brass thing, right?
Yeah, right.
Like, by the way, what do they sell for? Stupid amounts of money, right? Like,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Dare's
like
got one. Remember
5,000.
we used one on ToonTracks.
yeah.
Honestly, though, like kind of some of the nicest snare drums ever to hit. Like especially if you are a hard hitter like Pat and myself, who can like engage, or yourself, Brendan, like you can really engage that snare and like, you know, it's pretty dynamite. You know, Daniel's is a 5.5 even, and I thought that was
Ooh.
perfect.
That's
Yeah, actually, yeah.
cracking.
I would say to answer that guy's question is,
That's
I don't
Ryan
think
Davis
all drums.
also?
I think if you hit the Ludwig 402 as hard as you can on the bell brass, the Ludwig will have a ceiling.
Choke.
You know,
So
I've had times where someone goes, "Hey, it's kind of choking." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
to that
okay."
point,
So
Yes.
do you think that players pay attention to the fact that drum sizes and thicknesses have unique volume thresholds?
You
and
know,
hitting beyond that won't sound better. So that's
maybe
to Pat's point.
I don't
there.
know. Like for instance, what about I got a Gretsch kit, like a 74 Gretsch
Mhm.
kit that Pat likes to use all the time, and that I like to use. And there's something about that kit with the monster, you know, the hardware that it is. It's so
And they're
like
deep
dense,
too, right?
deep, but man, there's something about those, like, you know, Pat plays those drums, they sound incredible when Pat plays them. And I think it's because, like, you know, you get into them, and like you kind of do, you know, a lot of time we have them at the warehouse, so that room as well is a whole other thing. But you know, when you juice those drums, they speak, you know. And I've played them in a softer volume, they sound really amazing as well too. But I think in that particular drum kit itself, with the shell size it is, with the hardware, that like the Gretsch kind of thing that happens. I know guys that are like, I don't like Gretsch at all, and I think it's the rims, I think it's the sound. But
Okay.
you know, when you lay, like Pat lays into that kick drum, lays into those toms, like we've done a session with a producer that Jamie
Yeah.
Jamie Kosh, and he loves that kit. And we did a session, and it was like there's nothing on these drums. It's the room, the drums, the player, and they sound incredible. And I think if those drums, maybe the harder you hit them, you know, maybe sometimes not like choking them, but the harder you
no,
move,
yeah, I think there is. You know, to answer that question, there's definitely there's going to be a ceiling with all of this, but I think that I'm going to say that a 3-ply Ludwig, so those older drums, they weren't designed with any of this in mind, and we hit them harder probably. You know, so if you got a lower tuning on those, I think their threshold is going to be lower than your Gretsch, which is a different kind of shell. And then probably when you get into some of these modern, some of the Pearls or Yamahas or maybe Tamas, where, you know, I think if you got a shell that's whatever that is, I don't know, is that it's maybe half an inch, I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, I think when they're the thicker shells, you probably can afford more if you're a super hard hitter, you know. I mean, man, you've worked also with the other great Abe Laboriel Jr. Now, is that guy really slamming hard?
You know what? That guy, if you take a second, that guy he's just like anything he touches just sounds right.
Yeah.
You
but
know,
I mean,
like,
but is he doing like what Aronoff does or something? Or I mean, yeah, sure he can.
Remember those drumsticks he uses? I couldn't believe it. They're like this big. They're like big.
They're
like
short.
Inches. Yeah, they're huge.
Oh,
they're big. The big, with the big tip. And he left a bunch here with me, you know, once, and he's like, just, you know, whatever, if I come up again, or just use them. And man, they were a game changer for me. Just, you think that these big, burly, humongous sticks with this power, they were so well designed. The bounce, the tip, the sound. And when I saw him play for the first time, it was on a Buble record, right? And when I was working with him, and you know, that wasn't hard hitting at all, or that kind of, you know, arena Paul McCartney kind of style. But man, his musicality, I think, supersedes everything. So like when we'd set him up for, say, Ludwigs that are really, he knew how to, like, you know, of course you hit them up the gut, you don't really slam them, you don't do this. But when we set up like the big stainless steel kit or the big 26, he knew how to get that out. I think with hitting hard or not hitting hard, I think like with maturity or growth, if you just learn how to like hit the drums cleanly
Yeah.
and you know how to get the sound out of the drums, then that,
Mhm.
like Bonham, there's that whole thing where
Mhm.
everybody thinks he was just you know, like hitting to like you know, you see like thrash metal bands and guys or hardcore bands, those guys are slamming like from here,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's what Bonham kind of is in this category, but he's not, you know.
We're certainly not on the cymbals,
Not on the cymbals, but
you know?
he just was so clean,
Yeah.
so musical. So
Yeah.
you see videos like by the time he was 33, he looked like he was like, you know, a 60, 70-year-old player, just, you know, nice and clean, up the gut, in control, but
Yeah.
like this massive sound. So
Right.
with and same with Pat, you see guys like Pat's known for being like boomtown and like, you know, annihilating and all this energy, of course, but I've seen Pat play at the smallest and quietest of volumes, and the drums are beautiful. They sound amazing, you know. And so I think it's more of a developed, you know, if you know how to play, just like any instrument, I think, you know, like in a guitar, if you can really get the sound out of the instrument, you know, and drums are overlooked
Mhm.
that way a lot, you know. It's like,
Yep.
or even if I'm teching, they'll say, okay, that sounds great, and maybe another drummer goes in there. The conversation slowly moves to, hey, can you maybe show him how you were hitting the drum, you know, because it's just more of like how the intention of how to hit the drum, how to get the sound out, you know.
Right.
You know what?
More,
And that's a great thing, though. That's a great moment where you just go, oh, sure, yeah, I'll show you. I don't know. Here's what I was doing. This is just what I do. Now, for that guy who's 18 or 20,
yeah.
this is his first experience or fourth experience, but
And
whatever.
how do they know, right?
He's still on that, like we spoke earlier about. You're constantly evolving and learning, and I love it when if the guy came up later and goes, man, it was so great. Thanks for showing me that. Because
Totally.
now that guy he goes home. He just learned probably the best thing he could, because it's all about the hands. It's in your hands.
Yeah,
Your favorite guitar players and drummers, it's his hand. It's not any science.
Exactly.
He just hears it this way and he just plays. That's what he does.
And you know, the thing I see a lot now, especially teching, is like with Pat, if he's out on the floor and I'm teching for Pat, let's say, and the producer will say, oh, that sounds good. That sounds, I can go in and say to Pat, yeah, cool. That sounds great. I'm going to do this lug like this. And they're saying up the gut. So Pat knows instantly, okay, no rim shots, right? Or no this. And you can make that switch. And Pat knows how to EQ, you know, his top end versus his low end. And this is, you know, this is just with all this amazing experience and being an incredible player. But for young guys or other guys, it's like, you know, sometimes you'll see like chasing, especially now, everybody's into that huge, big, gushy snare, right?
Yeah.
And the one thing everybody I see doing is that you're hitting it with a tiny thin stick or with the tip of your stick and you're rim shotting it, right? It's not the move, right?
No.
You flip your stick around and you lower your snare and you get it right in the center of the head.
Just let that stick fall. Just let it go.
You know, do it. And that's
even that, just the weight of the volume that comes from just you let it drop.
That's it. And these are things that you discover, you pick up from other people along the way. But, you know, I think circling all the way back around with certain drums, the way that they speak, or, you know, the live thing is different because there's a whole other energy. But in the studio, when all those mics are up and all, you know, and you got a EQ 16, 32, 24, 8 mics coming out of, you know, a stereo set of speakers, it really comes down to the player, you know, and how that, because you know, with some of these guys like Pat and Abe and all these guys, it's just like you could set up, you know, garbage cans and they'll know what to do with them.
Right.
You know, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Garbage cans today. I got it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, so that there's part of that full circle is bringing the musicality into play. Right. And the musicianship, not just like the drumming per se, bringing that thing to
because it should be about music. I mean, we all are busy and loud and in maybe some of the wrong ways when we're coming up, when we're 20 or whatever, you know. And I started to take things as I got older. I started to take things away because I like, even the only thing I like about a 10-inch tom is inspired by Copeland, and I'll just crank it tight.
100%.
And if there's a reason to have it in there for like this song,
or Jordan or Steve Jordan.
Yeah. If there's a reason, then that's how I'm going to have it. And I love the sound of just whacking it. But if it's there, like, does it need to be in the song? You know, so I mean, it's smart that I was just saying to someone earlier today, I'm constantly, every band, every genre, it might be a new kit, but a lot of times, and if it's indie stuff and a lot of stuff we see around Vancouver, it's a 4-piece set of Ludwigs, maybe Rogers or a Gretsch, but generally it's a Ringo kit. Yeah. And, you know, and then I was looking, I go, well, that guy's got a Fender Precision, and it's probably a 69. That's beautiful. And he's playing a Telecaster. And I'm like, okay, well, a 4-piece set of Ringo is the same as just picking up that bass or that guitar. So, and it's actually smart. Like, do you need a 5-string bass? It might be good for something, but maybe just play the 4-string. And then if you're recording, you're going to use that drop D or whatever. So maybe it's the same for drums. You usually like 1, maybe 2 cymbals and a 4-piece kit.
Man,
otherwise you put stuff up, you just want to hear it.
That's it. I started, like, when I was first coming and really got serious about playing, like my first, like, other than my Pearl Export that I, you know, rusted out for years, when I made the leap, you know, I went straight to, you know, Ray Ayotte drums. And I, you know, if I say out loud what I spent on those, my mom is going to reach through the phone and slap me, you know?
Oh yeah. Isn't that your college fund or something?
Yeah.
I bought a set of drums.
But I, you know, and I was coming up in the day, you know, in the 90s there, past, you know, and the bands that I was in started to really kind of had the Deftones sound, that California thing. So it was 8, 10, 12, 16, 18, 22, super punchy, a ton of cymbals. And then when that kind of moved past, I got into a local, like a rock band that was doing something. And I had to quickly learn how to go rack, floor, you know, it was a huge lesson, right? Massive lesson. And, you know, and like what you're saying, Pat, is like, I couldn't agree more. It's like, you kind of, you know, when, you know, maybe a younger bass player will come up to you, do you have any advice for me as a bass player? Okay, what are you playing? Well, I'm playing Warwick, and I'm playing a Sadowski, and I'm playing where's your P bass? I don't have one. Okay, well, go get a P bass and learn on that. Even if you don't end up playing one, it's not your sound after. There's just a certain thing that you really got to do. Like when I got my first vintage Ludwig, I sounded terrible. I was like, these drums are terrible. I'm terrible. Like what? And it was more me than the drums. And I learned this the first time I went down the rabbit hole of like, oh, so sounds better if I don't bury the beater. Oh, and it sounds better if I hit the tom like this. Yeah. Oh, it sounds better. Like, and it really taught me how to play. And it, you know, brings another, you know, a whole other, I guess just another part of the catalog, right? And then that's where the light bulb for me went off. I'm like, well, why do guitar players get to like have all these guitars for the right sounds and all these pedals for the right sounds, and drummers only have one drum kit? So that's when I really started blowing the rest of my money on drums. And just because, like, if I was playing in a ska band, I wouldn't use the Ludwigs. I would use this. And if I was playing in this, I would use this. And I started, you know, and it was very Steve Jordan inspired too. I started getting into Steve Jordan and going like, that guy's got a sound, but he also plays something different for everything. And like, he changes out a snare drum on every song. Like that blew my mind. You know,
it's crazy.
Live. Yeah, exactly. And you know, that's hip, man. Like when you start going down that, you know, when you give in to the music that much, like it's just going to come out in like, it's really going to convey. Right. Yeah. So that, for me, that was a huge moment. So it's like what Pat's saying, you know, I think it's really important to really, even if you're not, like at the time I was kind of poo-pooing the style of music that I was playing in, like this rock band. I wasn't really, but I had to call my own BS. I had to say like, okay, you know, why don't you like it? You should try it first. Right. Like, and just figure it out. But then I ended up learning a lot, finding space rather than being a musical force, you know, in this 3-piece that was like the drums were speaking constantly, you know, the drums were coloring constantly. The drums were part of the hook constantly. Whereas like in this rock band, it's like, hey man, you're rushing. Hey man, you know, that 4 on the floor isn't that tight, you know, and me like getting, like all this easy stuff isn't easy. You know, and like learn like this is, you know, and for a lot of established players and guys coming up, you know, of course, this is resonating for some people that maybe, you know, maybe might be struggling with that or not knowing, or that's a huge thing, is learning how to like go to Ringo,
Mm-hmm.
Go back to that way. Go back to like, these guys who really wrote the playbook.
Right.
You know what's cool? What you just said is, yeah.
Harry's giving me shit because I like 6-piece drum kits.
Yeah, but you can play a 4-piece easy.
Oh yeah.
You know what to do with all that.
Yeah.
So cut him some slack, Harry.
Come on, Harry.
Come on.
You get excited with different size things. Like we were talking a couple of years ago at a session. We're going, man. We kept jonesing about. We were talking about Matt Cameron. I'm sure you kind of got a Matt Cameron set up there, and like two racks. And he's going, yeah, man. And then we'd see each other 5 months later at another session. He goes, yeah, I've been really feeling this 2 tom. I think I might take 2 tom. I go, you got to take 2 toms, 2 racks next to it, because nobody does.
I did. The only
you took
person
out the
that
blue
didn't
ones.
like him was Travis.
He didn't like.
He's an old soul. He doesn't like plastic drums.
Oh, he didn't like the drums. He didn't. It wasn't the 2 racks.
He didn't like the Vistalites.
Yeah, but Vistalites are crazy, man. The first time I played them, I went, "This sounds like it's made of wood. It sounds like a Ludwig drum."
Travis has got a pretty, a great ear, and especially talk about an old soul who understands that that stuff. We joke around that Travis is like 70, even though he's like 32 or something. But he was the first guy going like, I don't know, sound plastic to me, and in the arena, and they every night, oh my God, your drums, and I tuned them in musical places, a la Matt Cameron, like very intentional, these are in thirds and fourths and fifths, and like the bottom hit, like so that they did something right. And of course, you're going to record with them all the time. Like, no, I don't know, but the 2 tom thing, I grew up on 2 toms first as well too. The export was 2 high, 1 low, so that was a natural. Like this. Yes, right, totally like this. me and Pat actually have a studio set up that we call I don't know, can I say it? Am I allowed to say it?
Say what?
Is it?
There's probably a way to say it.
So
there's some augmentation that occurred in the 1970s. That was probably done by people who weren't really expert at it.
So when we set up some toms, sometimes we don't like to go in the shell itself, right? Especially when we're going to do 2. So we set them off to the side, and sometimes you don't have the right arms and the right thing, so you put them on 2 snare baskets. So what they end up looking like,
they're really far apart.
2 really, like we call it.
I've seen photos of that. Yeah.
So we call it the big bad boob job. So it's like one headlight looking one way and the other headlight looking. And but we, and you know what? It doesn't matter the way it's set up. It's just, when it's called for and it's played right, it's awesome. And there's something to be said about 2 high, 1 low, even rather than 1 high, 2 low.
It's a different thing.
That spread and how you're getting around. And
I'm just remembering that now, like that kit, because it's probably whatever. It's more than a foot. From either, because you got a giant 26 or a 24, and as close as you can get it with snare stands, because you're like, oh, that other hardware is out on the road with my Dallas stuff or whatever. So
exactly,
it's like, that's fine, just put it up. And he was like, you guys, and then Jamie's like, you guys gonna go with 2 racks? We were like, yeah. You go, okay, that'll be cool. Or no, we should do it. We need 3 toms because it was a part.
Right.
This guy that we were working with is amazing composer, writer, and he has these ideas, and I'm like, okay, we're going to need a 3rd tom for that, because this does that, and it goes whatever the part was. And so I can, just as you were saying that, I was remembering going, oh yeah, I remember doing that and going, you just have a second there. I mean, it's amazing what experience does for you and the human experience in your brain. You go, oh, I've done this, but not for a long time. And you go, okay, think about the part, and you just kind of look at things, and you don't really sit there and I don't air drum it and try to figure it out, but you sort of mentally try to figure out it, and you're telling your muscles, this is now what you're going to try to pull off, and you gotta, I know, and the second time around, you got to do a double on the right, because you got to come back here to do the Motown snare or whatever it is.
Or whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah, so you got to double, and
but it's more intentional than it is drummy,
Yeah.
And then therein lies why it sounds awesome. It's just because you hear it, and it takes a second maybe to recalibrate, in that muscle. But I'll tell you, when I went back out on that tour and I had the 2 high and the 2 low, it was a pretty big setup. And, you know, I wish I had Pat's height and his reach for everything, because that's why he could get to the BB, the big bad whatever, right?
Yeah.
The Tom way over there.
That's why you can get there. But for me, it's a little bit of a stretch. But, you know, having them back up like this, and, you know, obviously growing up like in the Matt Cameron vibe, like really a fan of that, those big toms, man, just that extra note around some of the drum fills, and then being able to use the 18 more as like a super auxiliary rather than it being, you know, having to worry about it being like more connected to the kits per se. You know, and then throwing the low end off, you know, it's just this thing there where it kind of it was so fun to get back to, you know, to really play that. And some of the songs that you know, that we were playing live with Dallas's songs there, you know, it couldn't have been better. Like the fills, the way they phrased themselves, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, a lot of fun bringing that back.
I've been kind of going down I'm probably one of the world's biggest Toto fans. And,
that's right.
So
that's
like
right.
Jeff, you know, like 10, 12, 13, 16, 18. And I did at the beginning of the pandemic, you know, I think Ben Bradley was like, you got to cover Rosanna because they're doing
saw
these
that.
videos.
That was good. That was really good.
Yeah, thanks. But, you know, having the 3 rack toms and 2 floor toms was like, man, if I had a bigger vehicle and more and more you know, I was more motivated, I could get used to that, you know. It's so
you run
inspiring.
out of bars when you have that many when you have that many toms. You run out of bars. You're like, oh my God, I need a 2-bar fill.
Yeah, you get to start your fills way early and just, you know, crap all over the vocal, and it's great.
Well, let's talk about that for a second then. You know, a guy with all that real estate and then just money in the bank constantly. Percaro,
Scary.
come on.
Oh,
scary. And even
Scary.
Shannon,
right? Yeah.
He's doing like live streams and stuff on YouTube every once in a while now, and he goes and plays something, and his studio is just ridiculous too. You know, home studio. It's like
he's had that for years. I've heard.
Incredible. But yeah, he plays almost identical the way Jeff did. You know, very. You know, he's not a basher. He's very controlled.
Concise.
Oh, it's so good. But you know, I saw Toto a couple years ago in Vancouver, and he was playing, and you know, 10, 12, 13, 16, 18, and it was just unbelievable how good he was. You know, I think Savard came too, and it was funny watching him. Shannon played, you know, he's playing pocket for the most part, but he'd throw in these little fills here and there that were just explosive and just.
Yeah, I yet to see that version of Toto.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't see the other version of it, of course, but I've heard nothing but things where he just does it justice, like to a T. You
amazing.
know,
I'll see if I can send you. I'll send you the live DVD from this from their last tour that was in Vancouver. It's scary, and you know, Lenny Castro is playing percussion and.
All stars.
That guy's amazing. He's got you'd want to hear that guy tell stories. He's been around everything since the beginning of time.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
oh man,
did you read the Steve Lukather book?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. And then there's what's it called? It's a Matter of Time. It's
about time.
But yeah.
Right.
A friend of mine showed me a photo of it, but I haven't. I've been thinking about this for a couple minutes, Flav.
Tell me.
Well, I was like, I got this box of turtles sitting right here. And about 10 minutes ago, I went, oh, yeah, I just got to have one of these things. And I'm like,
well, that's the other thing, too. When we're on session, we always send for those Ritter chocolates, too, right? San Pellegrino and Ritter.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But if you were watching Jack Black do a thing, right, he'd probably just go,
I was so late. I wanted to bring coffee in, have a couple of dunkers, the whole thing.
Get up there.
If you need a coffee break, go and get a coffee. I mean,
you know what? I've had a couple this morning. When you got young kids, you're up. The first thing you do is you pour one in this eyeball and the other in this eyeball.
Yeah, right.
And then you're happening.
No kidding.
I woke up so early yesterday. I woke up at 4:30, and I could not get back to sleep. So about 5:30, I went, that's it, I'm up. But it was so early. I actually had to have a tea to warm into the day, and then hit the other stuff. And it was so fried.
Man, me and Pat get so jacked on coffee. Oh
yeah. You
Oh,
guys
man,
drink
it
the
happens.
good stuff.
When we're at the warehouse, we go to Milano Roasters. They're
Oh, man.
yeah. Oh, we just cortado it all day.
Oh,
And then
What about those other
we hear
dudes?
the loudspeaker come on and say like, "Hey, you two,
Guys,
please
shut her.
shut her down." Like the two. That's where we got chits and chats from, was from the ToonTrack session.
It was it was probably Ryan and Adam, right?
It was Adam. It was Adam
Mhm.
Greenholz. Yeah.
They'd had enough.
Well, yeah, and it was such a fun session too, where it was like so unique, and
Oh,
like
man.
for certain parts of it, it was like after we got sounds, Bob would just kind of go like, "Okay, cool, you guys, like, I'm gonna come in and have a listen later."
Oh, it was funny.
So
Like the
just,
first day,
four of us.
none of us, we didn't really know there was you and I and Bob. I mean, you get this. They go, here's what we want. They tell Bob what they want. Yeah, the Dr. Feelgood.
Yeah.
And then we learned a lot of stuff. Like, I've heard those songs for years. And he's
So
going,
much.
yeah, we used a Gretsch kit, didn't he?
Yeah,
And-
and like the one thing that I remember is Bob saying like, "Okay, cool. It took us 2 weeks to get this kick drum sound. You got about a couple hours. Have fun."
Yeah.
And then, so what we learned about drum sounds back in the day is like, we're talking budgets that, when the music business was, put it to you this way, the Gretsch kit that, from what I heard is that the Gretsch kit that they used on the Metallica record, they rented for the year. And I'm not going to say the undisclosed amount because, I probably shouldn't, but let's say it's like, you're buying a really nice car, like a really nice car, on a rental. They didn't buy the kit, right? So, and it took
who
them
did
like
they rent it from?
from Drum Doctors in LA.
So they just charge an astronomical amount of money for this drum kit because it sounds like
Well,
that.
and that was just because they had it prolonged for so long.
My God.
They
You
had
just
the
bought one.
rental open for so long. Like the kick and snare on that record, like what Bob would say is like that took, it's like, okay, but after a week, we were starting to kind of like, okay, we're really liking where this is. And this is Randy Staub and Bob, and rewriting the playbook again. I've used this phrase a few times now, but off of Dr. Feelgood, they did the same thing.
Right.
So on this ToonTrack session is what it was, is trying to recreate Bob's library, right? And I've tracked before where Bob is pulled Randy out of retirement to like, because Randy's just a mix engineer, but he's like, I want you to engineer this. And it was a luxury. I didn't know this existed, but I sat there for a full day getting drum sounds with Randy before we tracked even anything. And seeing stuff where Randy is putting coals on the toms and like different things. And like, I play for 10 minutes and then Randy comes in and moves the mic like that. And then I play for another 10 minutes and he moves it back. And like, we're talking, listening. And no wonder these drum sounds are killing,
Yeah.
no wonder they sound the way they do, because the attention and, and the drive to get these, out of this world actually happen. And, the thing that blew me away is to getting that, what Bob calls death kick, that Motley Crue kick, or the sample of what, I think he still had a sample as well that we were referencing back and forth while I was recording. I had so much stuff, 2 huge sandbags in the kick, certain heads, like really, it was amazing, like learning, what I got to do on my end to get what they need on their end. It wasn't just like hit the drum right, tune it right. It was like, I need it set up this way so that on my end, I can work my magic and compress and EQ and carve the way I need to,
Heavy.
And if you talk to like Savard, a guy that really uses that library, and a few guys that really use that library, they will tell me, I use that kick drum on everything. It's ridiculous,
Okay, cool.
Man, I still haven't had a chance to really hear it, in action.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. Yeah, I haven't used it, but I've heard it. I've heard guys go like, "Oh man, like I've used this," or we've pre-recorded something for something, and we use, on an E-kit, and we use those sounds. You can't tell.
Right.
I mean, it's
really
kind of a weird thing, right? Because you go, okay, great, I got that. I have a version of it, the version before it in here, And but really, what it's for, I mean, in a sense, it's a musical tool. I mean, you could come in and go, and Savard could go, okay, let's A/B all those kicks that you did, and I mean, you could do that, which would be cool. But really, it's to be used if he's using it or sample replacing something you recorded, then that's when you want to hear it. Like, here's the song, and it's with the guitars and everything, and they go, okay, just solo the drum kit now. You know, that's what I guess that's the way to hear it, you know.
And also as well, guys who are basically, you know, drummers, like only playing electronic kits or only have the capacity, like Sekou out of Toronto there. We were talking and I hooked him up with the guys at ToonTracks, and because he was in love with the library, and he in Toronto where he is, he doesn't have a space, you know, where he has his acoustic drums set up. He's got, so what his work right now and his tracking is all done from home on an kit. And that kit, those, especially the Foundry stuff, and the way Bob mixed it, and especially the way he mixed the cymbals, and it's so real, you know, it's so real. And so guys that are kind of stuck, maybe not stuck, but only have the capacity to play on an kit, let's say, bring in that library, it sounds and, you know, assimilated as best as it probably is out there to real drums, you know, inspiring, you know, inspiring, other than, you know, hitting plastic or whichever, you know, unless you have one of what's the Yamaha one, the DTX one,
the really expensive one.
That's the really expensive. Still, hitting the cymbals is weird, I think, but maybe you have those cymbals that are, what is it, Zildjian that makes the cymbals that are
Zen 16 or whatever?
Yeah,
Zen
something
16.
like that.
Oh yeah.
I could see that being
that would be a good, do a kind of a hybrid on your kit.
Yeah. A little
I mean,
bit.
when you have phones on and it sounds awesome, going like that, I have that at home, and it's not bad.
Not bad. I guess you get used to it, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I'm always lost on like when I had to, like, I was always lost. I always was terrible, you know, just terrible. So I haven't played. I don't actually own an kit, but every time I've had to sit down on one, it takes me a long time to, like, oh man, like everything's ahead of the beat. You know, everything is like, just feeling so.
Yeah, it's a feel thing to get used to. I know I've got a couple things to work out, and or else, and I'm listening to this and thinking, oh, maybe you just get some, maybe like some other things for cymbals.
Yeah,
you know, but the fact, like, that you can go, I just got this kit and Roland, it's a TD9, so like these are old.
Right.
And still, the technology, you can do any of the Juliana stuff or whatever. You can do a little buzz, but it does it all. It's all there, man. That's what it sounds like too. You know, and that to me is amazing, because I remember there was a time when, you know, electric drums and MIDI and things like that in the 80s, and it was just like you could just do eighth notes. Don't try anything fancy. Just keep it eighths. You know, maybe that's good. You know, you got a Phil Rudd setting. It's just eighth notes.
Yeah. Or a Pat Stewart setting. You know, when you're playing with BA, that's like you talk about the 80s.
Just some eighth notes,
man.
Yeah.
That's it. The eighth notes and that big feel. Talk about toms. Hey, Brendan, have you gone down? You know, sorry, Pat, to do this, but have you gone to like YouTube and checked out some of the old BA footage where Pat's on SNL or Live Aid and some of this stuff? It's amazing.
At some point, I'm gonna have to go back and.
Oh yeah, the SNL stuff is out there now. It didn't used to be.
Good, man. It's so good.
And I was playing on this Milestone kit, and I mean, like I said, I said to Flav, I go, I may have been the first guy. Like I may have beat Dave Grohl with having a 14-inch rack tom.
That's true.
Because Grohl was on there, right? And but I had this kit, and it was when I first hooked up with Bryan, and three racks and 2 floors, but it was Milestone, and it was full on 80s technique of, you know, it was they were all super deep. So that was a 10. They were 10, 12, 14, but the 14 was like 14 by 14 on a 24-inch kick. So like, even for me, I was like, oh my God, I have to angle them this much. I don't like that.
The prerequisite for drums is like, can you play in time, and how tall are you? Back in the 80s.
Exactly.
Bryan Adams used to sit on my drums. Like sometimes, you know, we'd have these fun little, he'd sit down. I would always feel bad when somebody like of that stature or other people would sit and go, oh man. Well, he wouldn't ask. He'd just go sit on your drums. I don't care. Right. That's fine. But he would sit on the drums. I would feel bad. I go, oh, he can't have a good time on my drums because I'm sitting this high and the toms are pretty flat. And he's like your son, your 2-year-old trying to play it, you know? But you know what's funny? Speaking of him, it was that last summer I found out, because now he's doing stuff. If you look on his Instagram, like he's got a place out in the middle of the ocean out there, down just north of Venezuela somewhere. Yeah. And he got a set of Ludwig's, got him shipped in, and we got talking one day, and he goes, no, like that was my first instrument. Like I'm amazed how many times over the years, like Savard, you find that out pretty quick that he played drums first, and he probably is a pretty good drummer. And
well, that rhythm hand, man, Brian's rhythm hand. When I saw him play or heard him play, it's iconic. You go like, oh, I know that. Oh,
you mean when he's rocking out playing eights?
Just like, or like you find out like Chris Cornell was a fantastic drummer. You find out you start going like, oh.
I think Chris was was he the very first drummer in that band? Was there a time where he was the drummer?
I think so.
Or was that a different band that they amalgamated?
I think in the inception of Soundgarden, if I have it right, he was, and then stepped off the kit. And then especially when Matt Cameron came. But, you know, there's songs. I listened to this really great podcast with Matt Cameron talking about all this stuff. And he talked about, you know, because they're all kind of a musical force in that band where when Chris was around, is that like there was always like Chris would have this drum idea and maybe Matt had the guitar idea or, you know, vice versa. And the amalgamation of the sum of all parts, you know, all producing. And what did Matt say? He was kind of like the musical director in the band. Like they all had this, it just worked in that band. They were just, you know, especially after.
Well, he might have been the musical director more than like the other guys. Well, somebody just told me that Ben Shepherd actually is a guitar player.
See, that makes sense to me too.
And then, yeah, because his writing is amazing. But you know, and everyone, like for years when that band blew up, it was all about the lead guitar player. Well, in guitar magazines, right? But honestly, when I listen to those records, I don't know who's doing what. And there's this one sound that happens a lot. I'm not a super fan of. To me, it sounds like a wah-wah pedal halfway down, and it's just tons of noodling, you know, on outros and stuff. And I'm going, I don't know. I guess that's him. I don't know. And then you see clips and you go, oh, Cornell's playing that part.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
What? Not that noodling, but some other really cool kind of almost like a Beatles part, you know.
Yeah.
So that would make sense that Cameron is the MD.
Yeah, he said that what was
he just might have had the right head for it, right?
I think. Well, he's just another guy where like, you know, I didn't know when I was young and like he was like my favorite and I would just like everything. It spoke to me so much, and then it made sense when I found out that like, oh, he's a killer guitar player and a killer singer.
Have you, Brendan? Have you heard that stuff that he's got an album called Cave Dweller?
Yeah, it's really good.
You can find it on Spotify and it's on iTunes as well. Like I bought it as soon as I heard about it. It was some Rolling Stone magazine thing, and it was a SoundCloud. And I went, whatever, I'm just going to buy it and give him the money. And it's amazing. I went down that the other day just because I started working on this Mark Juliana stuff, and I went, because he plays that album is Matt Cameron on everything, and then Mark on drums.
Yeah, right.
There might be one or two guests on a guitar or a bass or something, but it's pretty much just those two dudes. But there's I think there's a second album too.
There is. I think there is. There's something else coming out too. I think he's got a co-record with Taylor Hawkins.
He's got a thing. Yeah, I'll send you guys somebody sent me a thing from Rolling Stone the other day, and there's a SoundCloud thing in there. For me, there's a song, and you go, oh, they kind of. He said, Matt sent me this thing. It had these fog hat guitars on it, and so we kind of did this thing back and forth. So they're doing that. And so there's that one song, but then there's another song on there. And then in the article, so I don't know what Taylor does on that song, because they go, yeah. And in the article, it says, apart from singing, Matt played all the instruments, but he got the guys from, not Mudhoney, another band, like maybe bass and guitar or something in there. Melvins. Yeah. But there is some good, there's some riffing and there's some writing in there, and you go, oh, that's Matt. Like he's got a style that's truly awesome.
when he joined Pearl Jam, I was like, for me, this is all like when I was 12, these are all the bands that, especially being from Seattle and just up the coast here, this is all that resonated. So I was hooked, and Pearl Jam, especially was another band that I was. And then when I knew that he was joining that band, and I was like, oh, this is the best, and when I read stuff back in the day where it said like, and that's a full band vibe. Everybody brings stuff to the table. Of course, Vedder brings most of, I think all the lyrical content, but everybody brings riffs. It's like a band vibe. When I remember this interview where Eddie said that like, oh, when Matt brings a riff or a song to the table, we all put our instruments down and just listen. And some of the coolest, when you go down the rabbit hole, the coolest songs and this weird kind of like angular things that are happening, those are all Matt Cameron songs, and you start to learn why he, is singing backgrounds. And just when you go down the rabbit hole, he's another guy like for me, when, in the Abe world of things where it's just these musical forces. And of course he's the MD, the unspoken MD. Of course, like it makes so much total sense, to me, and just the way.
You imagine those guys up front rocking out, but they know they got the Godfather sitting behind them or whatever, right?
Yeah, right. It's just that kind of thing. This is, hey, Brendan. So this is me and Pat in a nutshell. We go.
This is great.
Coffee, Soundgarden.
Brendan's fans are like, you guys get off there. Brendan never usually gets to ask a few questions.
You know what? Ryan asked another question. I think we ghosted him.
We might have. Yeah, he did.
Sorry.
Sorry.
But to put it up front, this is not about me. Nobody cares about me. It's all about who else is on here talking about stuff. So this is
a couple people did, but they stopped. They went, you guys are just talking too much. We're going to go get lunch.
My wife says when me and Pat are together, she always sends a text and says, did you guys remember to hydrate?
Right.
You guys hydrated? Make sure you Gatorade up. Oh, does reducing the amount of toms and cymbals change who you listen to and are influenced by? Does reducing the amount of toms and cymbals change who you listen to and influenced by? I guess so. I guess if you hear a vibe, maybe it's like if you hear a sound, who do you think of, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
is that what you mean? Ask it. Yeah, elaborate.
I think, I can kind of speak from my perspective. I kind of think of it the other way around, like, who I'm listening to and who I'm, into at the moment will change how I set up all of my stuff, like the Shannon Forrest, Jeff Porcaro thing,
Who are you channeling kind of thing?
Well, yeah, like you're listening to music and maybe, listening to, well, maybe that's who he's talking about. He could also be talking about who you're listening to in the band while you're playing in the studio as well. Guitar player, bass player.
That's what I thought he meant. I might have meant that. So, but even that, I'm not sure how to answer that thing. I don't know. If we're thinking about who we're playing with.
I'll say that in the studio, if you reduce the amount of toms and cymbals, you got a job for life.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so that actually makes sure that you're listening to everybody rather than yourself. When you work with Garth, there's a famous story there that he told me when I worked with Garth, and he had a young drummer that was adamant that they were cutting this big record and he had the wall of sound and everybody was like, no, let him set it up. And so as he was getting sounds, Garth would just walk into the room and tell him, no, keep playing, you sound great. One splash cymbal would be down, take the chime. No, keep playing, you sound great, trust me. Take this down, because they want to sound like Rage or something, and he's got 8, 10, 12 rather than that Brad Wilk setup or something. So the what I get from that is just the fact that it's like, yeah, if you're too busy in your own world, you're playing drums, rather than if you can get out of your own world and connect to the music. Because that's I find that was a big epiphany for me is going like, oh no, like, watching Levon Helm play for the first time and getting that, like, oh my, like, or Steve Jordan or these guys. And you're like, no. He's playing music. I'm playing drums, and drums is a tough one because, and when you're young, you're asked to like energy and hit hard. And where's your solo? And because you're kind of, it's easy to be not connected musically, you're not playing notes, but to get into the fact where you have to be almost like more musical by turning everything else on. And some of the best shows or some of the best things that I do is when I'm like not in it. Like I'm sure you guys we can agree, is like when you're not in your own head about what you're playing, you're actually listening. And I've done a thing where I actually don't have me in my own mix anymore.
Right.
That's it. I'm gone. I'm here. I'm right there. I know what's going on. I don't.
You mean live?
Yeah, live. A lot of live. I got a thumper behind me usually.
Yeah.
That I can feel.
I find that the instrument, I can hear it. It's right here. Guys are like, I mean, some guys, I've denied them, and then they go, hey, just let me do a mix for you, okay? Just let me, because it's what they do. There are guys who do. There's a few guys, the guy that works with Bryan, and I've had guys that aren't amazing, and there's a few that they're like the Mike Fraser of in-ears. But I used to get really freaked out because they're like, okay, I want to play with the band, so I want the keyboard players doing while the bass players and the sax solo. And all that, but I'm like, but I don't need to have all of this in here. I'm like, I can hear what I'm doing, but it's another world. It's almost like I should dial my velocity down 30-40% and be more Picaro like when that's going to go on, because oh my God, he's going to dial up this mix. It's going to sound amazing. But I'm kind of the same, Flav. I always just say I'm good with drums. They're right here. I can hear them.
And that's it. And you plug into some mixes, and you're like, oh my God, that's all clicking drums. So what are you playing?
Yeah. Hey, come and sit in. Just plug into my rig. Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard your mix too. Your mix is always when I plug in or whatever. It's always about who do I need to be hearing right now? Because it maybe if you're playing in a real quiet idiom or that kind of setting where you need to feel like the paperness in the snare just to get your velocity right. But if you need to juice your kick, let's say, okay, if you don't have a subwoofer or something like that behind you, usually in my sub I have bass.
Right.
Yeah.
Because bass in the in-ears, sorry, bass players, but
I prefer that in the sub as well.
So you just put that back there, you get it carved out so you can feel right what's going on. But usually it's vocals, guitars, that thing, click as much as you need, that if you are playing to a click or whichever. So it's battling, or you plug into mixes, it's all track, it's all click, it's all drums. It's like, what are you're playing drums, right?
Yeah.
Sure, if you need to, like I've had these instances where I've got to anchor the band because maybe it's a little this. So sure, okay, up click, up this, that kind of thing, just to steady the ship. But it's like, that was a big thing for me is stop listening to myself, and start listening to everyone else, and like growing up, you read Modern Drummer or you talk to your mentors and guys like, they give you the advice. It's like, what do they tell you? Use your ears. The best thing that a drummer has is your ears, right? Be aware, learn how to like find the space, and this is all, it's not cliche. It's like, this is real deal stuff. I think to being a great musical drummer, I'm sure with Chris McHugh, when you were talking to him, like, what do we love about him? We love that he's a plow, he knows, he's just so in control, and he is listening. He was the MD for Keith Urban for years, right? Speaking of, right?
Yeah.
And these guys that, why are they our favorite players? Like when you start going down the rabbit hole, you listen to Bonham, we go there. Sure, in the beginning, this bombastic ball of energy, but that was the band, when he was, by the end, it's amazing right now. Michelina, my daughter, all we listen to is Physical Graffiti in the car. It's amazing.
Awesome.
She loves Jimmy. There's something about Jimmy Page that she loves. And like, I've been listening to on repeat. He is so dialed in, so for the song. Sure, the best drummer, what guys would say, but come on, he's the best musical drummer. Why do we love him? Why is he the king? Because
Custard Pie on the way to school.
Yeah, totally.
Grade 2. She in grade 2?
No, grade 1.
Can you imagine that? Your dad driving you to school and go, hey, let's listen to Custard Pie.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
It's made me listen to Physical Graffiti a lot different too. It's just like, because that's at first it was Battle Studies with John Mayer, right? So
okay.
She'll say like, Pop, put on Steve, so I'll know that that's John Mayer. I've got it down. I got it down to drummers, not bands, right? And she'll say, "Can put her on to John," So, but it's like by listening to this stuff, it's like, and by the way, he was 33, man. He was
At the
30
end?
at the
Scary.
end when he's playing. You know,
That's crazy.
how old was he when he's playing Physical Graffiti, Pat?
No.
Like when on that record, was he 32? You know, he sounds like he's got Jim Keltner experience. You know, like he's way up there at like, because why? Because, you know, and then you go down the rabbit hole. He really loved, you know, it was R&B and soul, big band, you know, that pocket playing. It's like the misconception with Bonham is like that he was this boom bap. Sure, yeah, the big arena thing, but on record, come on, like that guy was just, he was pound the best. You know, the way he could play a song, or like when you listen to you know, off of Physical Graffiti, you listen to Houses of the Holy, you can hear that ping and that honk and that snare, you know, cutting through that, the 402, that classic sound. I sometimes think it might have even been a Black Beauty, the way that sound that's resonating. There's a certain honk that's coming off of it, that and it's so consistent in the song. You know, it's like,
I mean, they would have been available, right? They existed.
Right, it would have been. I feel like it was that. We should go down that rabbit hole now. Now, Pat.
I wonder when they started making them with the big classic lugs, you know, because they made them with the tube lugs back in, I don't know, 30s, 40s.
Yeah,
I'm not sure exactly, but you know.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, you know, these guys, and getting back to it, just like for me, for Pat, you know, as much as, and I know a list of drummers the same way. It's like, and you're the same, Brendan. It's you know, you got to find that pocket and space and place. And if it's not, you know, sure, with your bass player, you got to be connected, you got to be there together. But if you're thinking about each other too much, it's kind of not, it's kind of lost, isn't it?
Right.
You know, sure, there's moments where, you know, you're coming in and you're like, oh, this I love when we hit this together. But more connected to what the singer's doing, if you're, you know, if you're in that idiom where there's a vocalist or whatever speaking, whatever saying, you know, this is stuff that we hear time and time again. But if you actually don't apply it, because, you know, you've come across drummers where maybe they say it, but you can hear it. You're like, no, you're not doing it.
Right.
You can hear that you're not doing it. You're saying it, so maybe it makes you feel better about your ego, you know, but you're not doing it. You can hear you're not doing it, you know. And
speaking of Jim Keltner, there's a new kind of online interview series. I can't remember what it's called.
That's
check
with
that
Ross.
out.
Yeah, that's with Ross. He's done a few. He's done one with Abe and Joey Waronker. Yeah, another guy, you know, fantastic.
Oh, he's interviewing?
Yeah, Pat, you know, so Ross.
Is that the one I sent you where he takes his glasses off?
Yeah.
Because I was so excited about it. I sent it to everyone, but I haven't even watched it, which is pretty much what I do with everything.
Yeah, I know.
But so I'll go, I sent it to Flab, I think. I'll go find it there. But I didn't realize that's what that is.
Yeah, that's Ross. So that's the drum doctor in LA. And
that's right.
He's interviewing, you know, Bob works with him all the time down there too.
Yeah.
So he's interviewing Abe and Joey and all these guys. And
that's cool.
I haven't watched Precaro burp.
There you go. Yeah.
You know that one, Brendan?
Which one?
You know, in that famous DVD, me and Pat laugh about it all the time.
You know, it's a VHS that he put out in about 88.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Which you can see it on YouTube. Yeah. Man, it sounds amazing. And again, it's in the hands. You know, it's him playing, well, maybe Gretsch, but they're Pearl.
They're Pearl.
Maybe he recorded probably some early day stuff. Who knows what he recorded with, right? But anyway, it's just his sound, and he's going, well, and he's breaking down Rosanna. It's like they took a break because you watch it and it goes, and then there's sort of an edit. Now they went for break, and there's like that little taco. There's a stand on the street. They got some enchiladas or something.
No, it's pastrami burps, 100%.
Yeah, probably.
You know,
and
me and Pat, we're like, when we do that, it's like, you know, you could tell he's like, well, you know, the figure and the and you know, it's like, oh, big lunch.
That's so funny. That's an incredible DVD or VHS.
Yeah,
you know,
is that the one? He's got a bass player and a keyboard player sometimes too, right?
Mike, his brother, and David.
H.
No,
H.
No.
It was,
Garfield?
I know what you mean.
No,
it's not filling gains or something. No. It's a different name. Yeah.
He was in a band with like Vinny, like on Vinny's solo thing. I think it's the keyboard from that. He's like a session guy, but David Garfield? No.
No, isn't he a drum guy too? A drum doctor guy? Hey, and is the drum doctor, was that Picaro's guy?
You know what? I'm not certain. I know he's been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
But
Was it Harry McCarthy? Was he Picaro's tech for a long time?
Yeah, Harry. That's right. So that's right.
I've never even heard that name.
When he's got Drum Paradise in Nashville. He's the nicest guy. So when we were touring with Keith Urban, he was Seth's, you want to talk about a Picaro guy, Seth Rausch, man. He plays, when McHugh left Urban's band, it's kind of like, oh man, what's going to happen? And we were touring the same year that he got the gig. And I remember watching the first show, and the nicest guy too. We had really great chats, and man, he's got a Picaro thing. The way he holds his stick.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
His sound, his groove, like you could tell it's there. And
he's a
Harry
monster.
He teched for McHugh, so he still has that. And Harry was awesome to talk to because he was Gad's tech as well. And, there's a lot of.
And he was on that tour.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you about that?
No. I've never heard that. He sounds like some old school McCarthy era white politician from Washington, D.C. That name. Sorry. Yeah. He's a godfather of drum techs, but.
Well, he was.
I do not know that name.
Yeah, and he that's right. He was the tech there. He fixed the snare drum for me. He had all these cool parts, like I brought out a Superphonic as well on the tour just to have. And he, of course, I busted it. Of course, you bring out your Superphonic. I busted a lug. And so he had one on hand, and just talking with that guy and those drum hangs, that was fantastic too.
Yeah,
but
that's incredible.
He owns the big backline cartage company in Nashville.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. Do they have a branch in LA now too? Because he started in LA. He was working out at LA for a long time, and then
I think he does. Yeah, I think he does. He's the Nashville. That team is the Nashville guy for sure.
Oh, I had Seth on this thing a few weeks ago, and we talked a lot about.
Oh, did you really? Yeah. Man, I gotta get my head out of the toy box.
He's so good. I've been really lucky to have like Chris and Seth and David Garibaldi and stuff like that. Like
I gotta see some of the rest of these. Seth must have been awesome too. He's such a great guy.
Yeah, he's so soft spoken too. I love all these interviews. Some of them are a little easier to interviews. I don't like call them interviews, but some of these kind of things, you kind of have to like egg people on and keep things moving. But like everybody I've had on here so far is just like great. Let's talk about stuff.
Yeah, he's a smooth player, man, and it was really, really awesome. That whole band, they were great.
Boy, what a treat, man!
Yeah, it was, and I was like, because. Of course, you're not judging because it's not about that, but you're like, okay, I got to check out who's this guy? Who's Seth Rausch? Who's this guy? What? He's stepping in for McHugh, at a level where McHugh is,
So McHugh did it for how long?
Quite some time, like
14 years or something.
Yeah.
Like he was, and I wonder why out of the gate, those guys connected and maybe as friends. Like, why was he how did he be the MD?
Did McHugh recommend him for the gig, Brendan?
I don't know. I think that what was
the no. Seth was playing for Little Big Town,
and Jerry Flowers was the MD at the time, and I think Jerry reached out to him after the thing. I think the Chris thing, there was a bit of a falling out. Kind of thing. Like
that's too bad.
I think that like between Seth and Chris, everything's cool and stuff, but there was something that happened that
I might have to change position. Somebody's home. Because I'm just sitting in the living room being loud.
Is Bunty home?
Bunty's home. Yeah.
There she is. I'm cute.
How
are we doing for time, you guys? You guys have more time? Do you want to?
I got a little bit more time. It's pissing rain. Dark. I've got all the blinds shut. I'm in the studio. Let's keep chits and chats.
Yeah. I'm in. I've got at least another hour, and then I'll have to go. But
okay. So, do you have some specific questions? Yeah, I know you wanted to talk about some of the Superior stuff. Hey, Kat.
She just was hiking up the mountains.
Of course.
So,
spikes.
Oh my God!
Spikes and snow.
Are there glaciers in the mountain?
We're gonna go for another little bit.
This is what we get. This is what we get on the West Coast, Brendan. You've been here enough, but you guys get the cold and the sun. Sure, we get some of these glorious days, but man, it's dark out here. So of course, what do? You just play music all day.
Yeah.
Pacific Northwest. That's it, right?
That'd be great. Yeah.
That's why some of these grunge bands are You know, when they came out in the 90s, I was convinced all the best stuff was written through the winter.
They're so angry. So
Yeah, it's so dark.
Yeah. As far as like specific questions go, we kind of talked about the ToonTrack thing a little bit, and this is, it doesn't have to go down that path too far, but I guess my questions are more about between the two of you guys, your tuning philosophies and how you're going about tuning. I think, people would want to hear how you think about tuning and how you go about getting sounds that you're looking for, and maybe specific sounds like, you already talked about the death kick.
Yeah, well, especially on that one, what's funny is I remember, Matthias, the guy who kind of is, I think, the co-owner or partnership, the ToonTrack's guy. He's such a huge spirit, right, Pat? Like he's got this big, so he's
Marcus?
just game. Yeah, Marcus. He's just game for everything. He's got this passion, and he's just like, whatever you guys want to do. This is Bob, like whatever. So, and Bob, being how he is, he's old school, but but also, big ears, like the best of the best. He gets the best out of everything. But anything that he approaches, like when you're on a session with him, and I've spent a lot of time in the control room where he is while the guys are playing, and every time he's like this, listening at the board. His eyes are closed and he's in it, right? So when we got everything together and Bob called, he said, we're going to do this thing, and I want you to take over, like tune all the drums and catalog everything, and then we're going to get Pat to do all the velocities and everything. And I think he was still a little unsure as to what would happen,
Right.
So his intention is always about making a record. That's it. Like, so when I have everything in there, and I said to Bob, I said, okay, so like, what are we starting with? And he's like, okay, well, we'll set up the Gretsch, and we'll use the 26. I think you can see it over my shoulder. It's the one back behind my head over there. We'll use the 26-inch kick, and we'll set up the Gretsch, right? So, and basically it was a couple of weeks, and that was the live room at my disposal. I had all these rooms so I could fine tune and all the heads, everything that we needed to make it, happen as per Bob's standards. So everything was there. So I literally took my time. I seeded everything. I really, tried my best at setting everything up as per. And for me, I'm not a tech, I'm a player first. So everything I do is coming from that same, how would I play it? How would I, or getting into that headspace. So fast forward a little bit, I set up the kit. We set it up in a place too where we put a PA in the room, because that was a thing. So we had a couple of massive subwoofers kind of like triggering the kit in the room, like making it larger. That's the thing that they did too, right?
Yeah, right.
Remember that, Pat? It was awesome.
Yeah, I know. I forgot all about that PA. Yeah.
And so I've got some pictures and stuff and some stuff I could share to you, Brendan, later. It's amazing. But
Did you write everything down, or you could look down at every kit that you did?
You know what? I did. We had to do it. So it's I think even Ryan or Adam or somebody's got it. I think I have some notes as well still, but I took pictures of everything cataloged, right? And we had to, because they had an artist who did, the CG on everything as well. So what ended up happening is, like, we, the first kit took a while to sample because we just didn't know. And, remember, Pat, the list of, we had to, like, literally as a checklist. They're so thorough about all the
I still have it somewhere.
Tips and shanks and all that. And like, remember, it was so after that first, remember that? So after the first, run through that took us like I guess more than a day to do, we got better at it, but more than a day to sample the first kit. We were so in love with the sound. And Bob was like literally saying, these could be some of the nicest drums like I've ever recorded. Like, oh my God, like these sound amazing. Like he was so jacked.
Yeah.
And then so after that one was done, I talked to Matthias. I say, so like, what do you want to hear next? And he'd say, like, I don't care, whatever you guys want to do. And so it was this stalemate. So I said to Bob, like, okay, Bob, like, what are we doing? And like, it's funny. His answer was, well, I don't care what we do, but those Gretsch toms aren't moving. And it's like, because his brain is stuck in like, well, we're making a record, right? And so it was between like myself and Adam, his assistant engineer, going like, well, laughing and kind of saying, well, no, like, Bob, we gotta, like, I gotta set some stuff up, like we gotta move past the Gretsch kit, Hey, Kat.
Right.
Oh, look at that.
Look at that here.
Christmas quiche.
Christmas quiche.
Oh
Ooh.
yeah.
Awesome.
Dr. Sue.
Look at that. Christmas quiche. You're on the World Wide Web.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, but what coming back to it is that the intention was I started just saying, okay, so Bob, what if we do what we did on Bublé's record? Oh yeah, that'll be good. Oh, okay.
Oh,
What
okay.
if we, so I had to start kind of like mentioning stuff. And then he got,
Right.
okay, let's do mono kit and let's do this stuff. But at first his whole thing was like, this is sounding,
We're making a record.
we're making a record,
Right. Keep it.
That's where
Yeah.
his brain was at. So that's kind of like was how it kind of, I guess, set the precedence for the whole 2 weeks. Was kind of like, let's bang the crap out of this. Let's just like let's make this, as good as we get. We have Pat, who we know is going to like, hit everything perfectly. Remember, there's a funny story too where we got in the vote and we were convinced that Pat fell asleep on a floor tom.
Oh no, it was a giant 24-inch cymbal. Oh, I did fall asleep.
And we were trying to, poor guy, we were trying to make him laugh in the control.
Like, it's mentally exhausting.
Oh.
It's the craziest thing. We'll go into that in a sec. But it's like, level 8 or level 10 or whatever.
Amazing.
You're not
man.
hitting
Such
it
a
again
great job.
until it's over. And if you take a 24-inch ride cymbal, give it a good crack. It's over a minute, man, before you're going to hit it again.
Yeah.
And you're
Totally.
You're not physically exhausted. You're mentally exhausted. Like, it's just a thing I never experienced. I never worked that hard like that,
Interesting.
And I, like, he goes, okay, go. Pat, go.
I was
That was when Ryan was running it, right? And I literally, it's like that thing. You ever been driving home after a gig and you went,
oh,
holy shit, I think, at 3 a.m. and you're cold, you're tired and you got the windows open. I've done that anyway, but
that was probably day
yeah.
9, or something like that of doing that. And
yeah, it was near the end.
I gotta say, he's so spot on, because my job was almost like easier, because after we were dialed and stuff, I'd be in there and then, here I am listening and whatever. Pat is like, and the other thing, Brendan, too, is that after you're done, that checklist goes back to Matthias and, another fellow who's there, and they listen and mix it. And then they go like, hey, you missed hi-hat bell level 7, so you got to go in and punch it again or something. So, but for me,
and you're over on floor tom 2 after, this many hours of doing it.
Oh my God.
And you're like, oh, we got to go back to hi-hat. Because when it would take, I forget, I think it was like 45 minutes to do a set of hi-hats.
it was insane, man.
And the first day was a little bit longer. So we might've got that down to about 35 after.
Yeah, that's right. We got better at it. That's for sure.
But it was insane. And, you'd be like, and I'd be like in between floor toms or something. I'd look back and go, he's in there hanging with Adam and Ryan. They're having fun.
Eating all that chocolate and San Pellegrino.
Oh, you bastards. I can't wait to finish this floor tom. We can go say hi and get him another coffee and then come in and start it.
That's why
it's like, all right, I'm done. And so you're thrilled. And it took about 3 hours.
And for
then,
Bob too.
Then you take a break and you come back and then you'd have set up a whole new thing. And then I'd be like,
oh
God. A little bit despondent, like, oh, okay, see you guys. I got to go back in the hole. I'll see you in about 3 hours.
That's why we started talking to you, though, and it was bad because, even if the stool did it's like, no, redo, And so, like, poor guy, we were like, and Adam's a good friend of ours and who we work with all the time, and Bob's team and Ryan Enochs and guys at the warehouse that we know quite well. And like, it was terrible. We'd just like turn on the talk back and start just saying stuff.
Crazy. I can't even remember, but I'm sure.
We were just talking stuff. And,
you know what's funny too? That was the time. This guy Adam he's amazing. Like when I don't know what he is now. Is he even 25? He's a pretty young guy. But when he first started working there and at the studio, and then he worked for Bob Rock, and maybe he was 19, and he was like still living with his parents, and just clean. He didn't, you didn't want to say the word cigarette around him or something. He was just clean, and then wholesome. Okay. There you go. And then you fast forward to this period, he'd been all over the world with Bob and over to Hawaii and this and that. And now he's starting to look, showing up at 5 after 10 instead of being there at 9:15 in the previous years. And
I hope he listens to this.
he's getting life experience, and he was just getting a little bit loose and stuff, So when we started doing the samples, he was the engineer in there going, okay, go, next, okay, level 5, we move on. He just sort of give me vocal cues, and then what happened? The band Nice Horse?
Yeah.
Those girls? That band, well, they sort of formed, but they started their first record while we were doing that. So
I know, I brought one of the kids down.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. The blue ones, blue sparkle Ludwigs.
That's right. I brought those down.
So backtrack to like day one, the first 2 days. Here's what happened. So Flav gets a kit set up. I go in there and spend about 3 hours sampling this whole kit. And, Bob's like, I'm here to make a record. And he's like, oh. And then he's like, he became aware probably just by looking around, or somebody said something. Well, he's going to be a while till he's done. Oh, And then so he'd like make some calls and then go do some stuff and then come back in, boom, crashed on the couch.
Yeah.
And then like, I go, hey, I got a question. I go, is Bob there? And Adam's like, yeah, he's asleep on the couch. I go, oh shit, okay. I go, or hey, I gotta take a break, man. I gotta take a pee break. I slip out to go to the washroom, and there's Bob crashed out on the couch. I'm like, oh my God. So like it was new to him too. Then the next day, and that day Andrew, okay, we'll see you tomorrow at 10, we come back in. Then we started up. I get going, he leaves. Then he comes back and we're going on lunch break. I go, hey man, he goes, how's it going? I go, oh, good, man. We just did that kit there. And I go, how you doing? He goes, oh, great, man. I'm all caught up. I had coffee with my mom, and then I saw my old bandmate, Paul. We just had lunch. I'm back here. I've had all the naps I need. So I think by about day 3, he's like, okay, well, I'm bored. And so probably around day 4 or something, all of a sudden, well, where's Bob? Or no. Adam's gone. And Ryan's now my engineer. Like,
yeah, right.
Well, what happened? What happened to Adam? Well, he's downstairs with Bob. What are they doing? Oh, they're making a record. I was like, what's going on here? And Ryan, for the project, he was really, really good. But he was way more anal.
Yeah.
I'd do a hit, and he'd go, okay, hang on. That's more of a 7, not a 5. So, but that's cool because I'll add that to the 7 list coming up. But okay, let's go. So let's stay on 5.
Totally. He was up
and we wrote the book. I don't know. They said, here's the menu that we use. So level, I can't remember where I've put it. And it's probably something stupid like inside the history of bebop or something book here. And, but the recipe was like, tip, like let's say hi-hat cymbals, 1 to 10 tip, I think, and then 1 to 10 with shank, which makes sense because you might rock on the shoulder, we would call it, but those guys, Matthias, the guy that wrote the recipe, he calls it shank. Tips and shanks. So you go level 1, just tip. Well, no wonder hi-hats took like almost an hour to do, right? So you had to do all that, and
I gotta say, Pat,
oh my God,
you did it so well, man. It was like
thanks.
It was quite a catalog to do, because that's what it is. It's just your cataloging, right?
And plus, I don't know what's level 1. I know how quiet I could hit this, and I know how hard I could hit it. In fact, he goes, Matthias, the guy, when we first got going, he said, I don't know, we got going, and he goes, okay, what do you think is level 10? I go, let's kind of do a version. I think we went 1 through 10 or something. And he goes, okay, that's good. I go, well, I got one more after that. He goes, you do? Well, let's hear it. And so now it's like, I don't know if I switched to the butt end of the stick and did one of those, did an Aronoff tribute or something. but we did 10. And you go, oh, so with snares, we rewrote the recipe. We added, I think, 11 for sure, maybe 12. Of course, that was great when we were doing 11.
Well, you got to the Pat always gets an extra 2 velocities in there for sure, right? You got to get the Pat volume in there.
Yeah, he's like, oh, that's 10. Like, well, yeah. Anyway, so that happened.
But it was like, yeah, we kind of just discovered this workflow, right? And for Bob, he was having a blast because he's like, man, all we get to do is I come in every day and he goes, I get to, like, he would literally come in, and Bob works fast, like dialing drum sounds is fast for him, especially on that
Really?
Neve console. And he
Mm,
just knows. And like,
Yeah.
and he's so great to work with, where like, even in a context of making a record, as part of the drum production, he just says like, I don't know, I'm looking for this and looking for this. And then he just let me go out, put up a snare, think of what I think. And he goes, yeah, that's it. Cool. And then like 20 minutes later, he'll say like, what's that snare? Which one is that one? Or he'll say like acrolite. He'll just say to me, acrolite.
right.
Or he'll say like, what's his word? He likes to use biscuity when he wants a
Biscuity.
Motown thing. And like,
Okay.
he's got these things, and like but he works fast. And so he was having a blast. He's like, I don't have to worry about, guitars, vocals, all this other stuff. He says, we get to do every day. He'd say, we get to do drums for 2 weeks.
That's
Like
awesome.
he was so happy,
And
so happy.
What an experience.
I never thought about that too much, because I mean, he's amazing at getting drum sounds,
Oh.
and all he had to do was create probably the best drum sounds, because he didn't have to worry about it interfering with other frequencies or whatever.
It's ridiculous too,
Mm.
because the other thing that he busts out is not only that knowledge and the years of experience and just the badass vibe that he has for that. You open up his like the Warehouse has a special mic collection. Like they got everything of,
Mhm.
A few of this,
Yeah,
a few of that,
insane.
of everything. And then you open up Bob's personal collection that goes with it, so you're cataloging and, recording drums with not only the best ears and that whole thing, just with that facility,
Right.
with that mic locker and some of the stuff that he pulls out to capture, and some of the techniques that you see that he get. It's just, and he says like, oh, I don't really use too much of this and too much of this. It's just that. Well, because he knows in an instant that this setting, this mic with this drum, with that player, bang, 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 bang,
Right.
it's just,
That's what he wants.
there. And so when you hear, and you see like even the big A-list guys that come up from LA or whatever, and that they work at, you see their reaction when they come in and they hear Bob's sounds too. It's like, Pat's got to hear himself back to Bob quite a bit. I've tracked with Bob now just a couple times, and hearing myself coming through what he's engineered
Mhm.
is kind of like, oh man, that's me. Like that's like, I sound like that. That
Right.
snare drum is, because he just knows. Or when you think you put something up in the room and you're like, no, you're gonna talk back. Sorry, Bob, give me a second. No. That's fine. It's good. And you come back in, and what he's heard on his end, there again is like these master classes. And for me, when I tech on those sessions for him, and like say Pat's in the room playing, I'm going to school the whole time.
Right.
I'm listening to what Pat's doing or what the ensemble's doing, what he's doing, getting those sounds, what he's listening for. So on those ToonTrack sessions, we were spoiled. It was literally spoiled. Like we were like getting sounds, and I could take, I'd say, oh, it's going to take me a couple hours to redress this kit and get the vibe. Yeah. Okay, cool. With no pressure, no like having to just get the sounds dialed. And, my mission for the tuning aspect was just that. Let's make sure that you're not going to hear a warble, in an overtone that doesn't need to be there, because Pat's going to hit it right. That he's going to catalog it right. It was fun. I don't think we'll ever do that again. Maybe, there's talks of working with those guys again with something, but I don't know if we'll ever get to do something like that again. It's very
combination
niche.
of people. Yeah. With Bob heading things up. That's
smart
and
choice.
I've heard people say too, like they'll say that package of Superior 3 has got to be some of the best stuff. And you'll go online and you'll do some research, and it's pretty cool. It feels good to be part of that kind of thing. Does it have a legacy? I don't know, but it's like, it's there, and it's there forever.
Right.
And you can use it. It's pretty cool. And the fact that, I had to outsource some stuff, but most of the stuff is all the stuff that I own.
right.
Some of the stuff we brought in that Pat had, we used some of it, that cool, that 24 Ludwig that we used. Remember, we tuned that really high. We had that in a really, we had.
Did we use that?
Yeah, we had the Silver Sparkle in like a Buddy Rich setting,
Oh,
By the
right.
end, we did like a big band thing, and
We did a couple of big band things, didn't we? With the Gretsch toms.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
With that. And so it was really cool. And then by the end, we started just going for things and just cool snare treatments. There's a few. I got some snares loaned for it as well. Some friends loaned some stuff, some Brady stuff, and just to outsource anything cool, anything that we knew that Bob would like, make sound ridiculously awesome.
Yeah.
And they did, and it was super fun. It was quite a highlight. We went in. It was about this time when we did it. It was just before Christmas or something. Wasn't
I know.
it?
I think it was November.
Oh, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Cool.
That was it was a lot of fun, and just the dedication and just being part of a full on drum session like that. Like, on a personal note, I'm lucky that I get to hang with drummers on these sessions sometimes. Like I get to hang like Pat with, we get to hang out, like when do you ever get to hang out with a drummer? Like
Never.
on a session? Never.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, like everyone's got that, you for years it was at the music store or something. You go to the drum shop, you go, hey man, there's so-and-so, how's it going? But everyone's busy. They're like, well, I'm just getting sticks and we're hitting the road, or I got to get back home because, whatever. And so that's like, that's a treat. We were talking earlier about just about you. I was saying to Brendan, I go, man, the first time when we used to do those they were called drum hang, right?
Oh, yeah.
With, Alex Glassford and another amazing drummer and a bunch of these dudes. And I said, man, the first night I met that dude, I was like, I need some more of that. And I had to wait
I think the first time we met
later.
was at a Sapien dinner, wasn't it?
Oh, maybe it was.
It was.
I forget. You might be right on that one.
But still, it was instant too. And for me, growing up in Vancouver too. Sorry, Pat, you can plug your ears if you want. But growing up in Vancouver, like Pat is the benchmark, and even in Canada, and like you know this, everybody knows this, and so especially the BA records, but some of the Matt New Good records, and like my first session that I ever got paid, Pat knows this, I was at Mushroom, and some of the Matt Good stuff had just come out, and I was channeling my best Pat, like that.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, and so just to be able to like finally connect and with a hero and a mentor and somebody who's like means so much to you, and then fast forward, we work together, we're friends, and like I call Pat for advice all the time, and just like things that it means a lot. So in Vancouver, especially in Vancouver, it's like, but we could say Canada, if you ever been, sorry Pat, you can plug yours again if you want, but if you've ever been to like a Juno or a Caesar, anything of these things where Pat's around, knows everybody, the legend, man. And so like to be working and learning, and it's an awesome thing. So when I got my vampires, I'm like, boom, they're in. It's like any chance, and we have like some epic phone calls, like
I believe that
so much to the point where it's like, oh man, this is getting to like 2.5 hours now.
The best point, I know, it's never enough. We're like, I gotta let you go. You have children. But I gotta ask you about that Milano coffee roast or whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is.
It's about everything. So it's like,
but nothing can top that your wife said. You came home from the session the first day, all excited about, Bob Rock, and we're doing this, blah blah blah, and she just looked at you and go, "Be sure you guys hydrate."
Yeah.
Good night. I got to get up at 5 or whatever.
Because I was picking Pat up too. So say the session would end at 10, I wouldn't get home till 11:30 because we'd sit in front of his place in my car just talking.
Oh yeah, we try to stop.
Just try to.
Don't know how to stop.
And it's just and this is it. So for me, working on these sessions like that, especially on that ToonTracks one, it was amazing. It was quite amazing. And moving forward, when you get to, and in the city too, it's awesome that Pat will ask for me to be on the session, to help and to be around and tech and do things. And I learned so much, but the hang is there, we get to we get to hang. And this is something that Abe talked about with Jeff Procaro, is that, when he was young, and everybody knows that Abe's dad, senior is world.
Oh, he's doing sessions with Jeff.
And so Jeff would phone Abe up and say like, hey, Junior, be ready in 10 minutes. I'm picking you up. And he's 12, 11, 13.
Wow.
Procaro's taking them to sessions, he's shadowing.
Oh my God.
And he's mentoring them. And like, for that insight, and he's already a musical force, but think of that, you got this guy that is nurturing you along, and you get to ask questions. And Abe would said, this one story he told me about, like, he's like, here he is, like, he's like, Jeff, what was that fill you did? And he goes, nah, you don't want to know that fill, like that whole modest thing,
Yeah.
or he'd pick him up and bring him over for a barbecue, and just these kind of things. And these are the kind of things, like, and again, this is not a YouTube, you don't YouTube this kind of stuff. If you got this stuff firsthand, you got it firsthand. Just like, when we're growing up, for us too, it's like, you listen to the record, you dissected the record, you maybe got to go see that live, and then you're like, oh my God, no wonder I couldn't get that drum fill properly. The drummer's left-handed.
Yeah.
It's just like the hard way, I'm just trying to get these nuggets, where now we can, type something up, you get the information, you feel like you have it, but you don't. The process, the osmosis, the whole thing. And so for me, it was just like a thing, this realism of listening, like, oh, of course you needed that stuff too. Everybody needs that stuff. Everybody needs that, to try and get that goal, to try and see it, to try and feel it, to try and get your ass kicked, a little bit. That process is like, I guess full circle, what I'm saying is that being able to work on the session with Pat and these particular things, you just learn so much. It's just so much.
Well, I'm just, I'm thankful to have run into you a few times on the road, Flav, and watching you play and talking a little bit is always an education. And now I'm gonna hang around Pat all the time when I.
You should. Everybody should.
On the road.
Everybody should.
Yeah.
I gotta say, Flav, that's really nice. Thank you very much. That's
100%.
I mean, we all just, like they say, we get up and we just put on our pants one leg at a time, whatever, but we just go and do the thing that we love to do. And then, like I was saying to Brandon earlier, around 31, where he is, around that age, you start saying there's things that you say no to. Don't have to do those gigs that mentally or emotionally drain you. You're like, I don't want to do that anymore. And you slowly start saying no, so that when you're at a level where you're just doing stuff, you're like, oh, Flav's going to be there. Like, I just hear that it's on an email or whatever. I don't have to think about it. It's like with a great bass player, I'm working on the song. We're fine. Yeah. The bass and I, but I need to know what the singer's doing or whatever, so we just show up, and it's great people, and it's just, everybody's getting along, and it's pretty great.
As you move through the industry, that's really it. It's like the great people. The music industry's got a way of just cutting off the people that aren't so cool, And
periodically, there's still a few floating around, and you're kind of going, that person does that thing still, and they're here. Exactly. Well, although at the end of the day, they may be a really great bass player or something. So the guy goes, "Yeah, I know, but I know that he can do the track I need." Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, what was the session you did at Mushroom you were talking about?
It was my first. Get this, I recorded 9 songs in one. I didn't know this existed. 9 songs in one day.
Yeah.
I paid $200, and I thought it was amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
You
right?
I
didn't know.
2002.
It's got to be something like that, And it was. I also learned a few lessons that day, other than the fact that I knew for life. After I did that, I was like, that's it. I'm doing this. Like, I am so hooked on this. The music was like, oh, it's pretty straight ahead. It's simple. Don't worry about it. I listened to it. It's so quirky. The guy didn't have one bar in 4, even though it was straight ahead. Everything was in 3, in 5, in 7, phrased, just
weird.
And I wasn't on charts at the time. Like, I wasn't. So everything I was playing was like, I sometimes think, have I ever done a session as good instinctually as that first one?
Wow.
I come back to it so like green and eager and hungry, going like I was playing in the moment and like leading things, not knowing where they were going, but it happened, it was a bizarre thing, and it was just so inspiring, and then the other thing that I learned was terrible is because after the session was over, I was tearing down and I was speaking with the engineer, and we were both speaking immediately about how quirky the session was and how it was something that we didn't think. And when I looked up, the artist was there and he heard us kind of talking about debriefing. And I felt like the biggest, lamest a-hole on the planet. And I said to myself, then that's the first and last time that my professionalism is ever going to be compromised. Because if that ever happens again, I'm going to hang them up. If I ever get fired from a gig that I deserve to be fired from, I'm hanging them up. I can never be called out in this unprofessional manner. It was a big lesson, really big, because, immediately here I am with the producer and the engineer going like, oh my God, like that was insane. He kept saying this and saying that, and it wasn't this. And I know, man.
Right.
I was
Yeah.
We were starting to kind of not like shit talking, but like just debriefing, not in a professional way.
Well, you know what else though is you got to hope if that guy didn't learn something from that, he might not be the ultimate way to hear it, but maybe he's going to learn something from that.
Yeah,
maybe
it was. It's just at my place in time. I'm like, this is not how this goes.
Yeah.
I felt like such a tool. Such
Yep.
a high to such a low, and it was about just my professionalism. It was and I'm glad in a way. I'm glad that I got both feet in my mouth, stuck in my mouth, because I'm like, this is just not going to happen again. I will never ever compromise that, to the point where it's like, I will. If it happens, I'll quit.
Yeah.
It's just like I just can't have that part of my thing.
Yeah.
But that was the first session in there, and I used the house superphonic because I knew that you used it, Pat.
Okay.
On some stuff, and I had my AOT drums in there, and that room is a special. It's Afterlife Studios now, but Brendan, if you ever come to Vancouver, again when we're allowed to, we'll take you for a tour of these places, man. You got to check out where
that'd be great.
it's these rooms out here. It's like we're Warehouse and Afterlife and Hipposonic and the Armory, these places that are just like, we're
Really legendary.
Yeah, I know about them all. I've heard about them all, and I see friends playing in them all the time, and it just makes me want to move to Vancouver.
You guys got some cool rooms out in Edmonton too.
We do. I mean, speaking of putting your foot in your mouth and ruining relationships, I think a few years ago I did the same kind of thing. After the session just started like talking about maybe another drummer in town or something, and
sure,
we all like different players and have different things that we like about music that we hear made locally. But I started talking about that after the session, with the producer, and I've been back to do some like teching and a couple of sessions there, but not as much anymore. So again, it was one of those things. Like, okay, that's gotta stop.
To debrief and to do stuff like that is always like, we're, especially musicians, we're passionate people, and there's a lot of emotion involved in what we're doing, especially in the moment or not. But there's always a time and a place. And when I hear about guys getting fired and stuff, you kind of just go like, well, yep, man. You did it, and like
you did it.
You just got it. You really got to do that, And that was a thing too, coming up too, is like, I had some gigs come my way where, there was a certain artist that apparently she was really hard on drummers, and then it came my way, and I had the previous drummers phone me, say like, that got fired from the gig, guys that I know, and they would say like, man, watch out, beware, she's a drummer killer and all that. And my brain went to like, well, I kind of know what you do. Yeah. And I kind of know what you do. I'll just try and do what I do, and we'll see. Right.
Yeah.
And to this day, I have the strongest relationship with the person, so it's just like, you got to be, this is coming back to the ego thing and the big ears. It's all part of it. I feel like my biggest lessons are still keeping myself in check, keeping my emotion in check, keeping my ego in check, keeping that working professionalism in check, to the point where, when you're asked or something, you can't poo-poo things. You can't like get into like, if you're asked your opinion, that's different. Flav, what do you think? Or Brendan, Pat, what do you think? I don't know. Well, I think this. I think this. I think this. Or or like, hey, Brendan, Pat, I want it this way.
Right.
Then you have to try that way. You can't say like, well, I don't know, like this isn't listen, it's just you're not gonna work. You're not gonna get hired. And you probably have heard this from all the guys you've interviewed, from Garibaldi and McHugh, and this is all stuff that sounds cliche, but it's cliche for a reason, because it's real.
Yeah.
You and Pat, like Pat's career, it's like, still going strong. Like, and it's because of that, you're holding this, you got to think too, for a lot of people coming up, you got to understand, a lot of people don't understand, is if you are a capable drummer and in that setting where you're musical and you can record, you're the conduit to a lot of people. Like most, they can play other instruments, sing, record, but maybe their drumming skill's not there. So as soon as they know that you can do it, it's coming at you fast, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a personal thing. It's not because you suck. It's not because it's the other way. It's because you can actually facilitate. You're the conduit to like their ideas.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you have to say like, okay, I think after 12 strong takes, we might be good, but they want, no, give me more. Like, I want more. Or like, that kind of thing. Usually good 3 takes or 4 takes or something like that. But, that is, if they're driving you hard, it's usually the drummer they're driving hard. It's because you can. So you got to let down that ego of like, why am I in the hot seat? You're not in the hot seat. You're in the driver's seat. You're in that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's good that you said it.
I had to get out of because I always felt like, oh, like, give me a break. Like, what's up with me? But I had to like go like, other conversations off the kit, going like personally, like, hey, are you good? Like, is this okay? Like, I'm really working hard for it. I'm trying. And they're like, no, like, I love everything you're doing.
Right.
Like, sorry that I'm driving you so hard. Well, no, like I'll, if you don't cut me off, I'll keep going take after take after take after take. That's how we're all kind of wired to do. Right. But it's more of a thing of like, okay, I get it now. Like, rather than them having to program and, massage things. They're like, oh, I got a guy who can do it.
Right.
Okay. Yep. So verse 2 on the back half of, bar 3, I want that 16th note there, and you do it in that take, the first time they go like bingo, and they're going to start, unless there's instances too where you work with people that like that, or there's people that go like, phew, just play.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So that all comes back to that. I feel like, the ears and the ego and having to truly let go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. It's really hard.
It's a big moment for drummers, especially when you're young. It's like to really call yourself out and go like, man, I gotta, why, and for me, it was a thing of like seeing Pat, like, in his 30s or something like that, going like, he's playing so much simpler. And like, I feel like I'm doing this, but why don't I sound as good as he does? Right. Of course, experience and everything, but it's more of like, because he's playing music, he's connected, like it's a big, especially if you want to be if you're in a band and you're a writer and it's a sum of all parts, and you have a voice, that's different than like, of course you got to still supply the same kind of groove and intention and timing. We all look for that, at the drums, the energy. But if you're in a hired setting, like all 3 of us do, it's like, you're especially the drums, you're out first. I'm out, whatever it is, you have to be, okay, what's everybody else, where everybody else maybe can be. And, you play with great players, and who are they listening to for that? They're listening to the drums, so if you're not giving it like off the bat, then, this misinformation's floating around this band, right? Yeah. You're just firing misinformation around, you have like a guitar player who's listening to you, listening to the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this thing. So it's a, it can be pretty, it's heavy, it doesn't have to be heavy, but in a way, like it's got to be a serious thing, right? Because, we all know the drums, it's like everybody, like when there's a mistake, everybody's just it could be a whatever, somebody a keyboard mistake, it goes for the drums first. Like, oh, what happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just that kind of thing. Or like, where are we? What are we doing? And if you're too busy in drumland, like that's tough,
trouble.
Right?
Yeah.
It's trouble. There's a lot of great players that get another good buddy, Lyle Molzan, who's a fantastic drummer, and a guy who like, he has the same spirit, the same, you watch him play, you listen to him play night after night, he's in it. He's playing music and those are always, our favorite guys. Or when you see a drummer, just laying it out so simply, so, like you think like, why is this just killing right now? It's because, he's in it in a different place. Right. And so can be said with all instruments. Like we need to be there with all in musical situations, so it's something that I constantly am working on. Or if I find myself on a live show or in the studio, thinking about pizza or coffee or something like that, it's like, let's, or too busy about my part. It's like, if I stop thinking about my part, it will reveal itself.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Definitely. Oof. It's a heavy.
Big ears.
Yeah.
Heavy. Sorry.
Yeah. It's fine. It's, and the playing part is for sure big. And I think just to bring it back to the personality side of things, it's still a learning experience. Like, working with different producers, and you kind of know what parts work with what tune and what won't work for like a tune, but just having, being able to suppress your ego enough to just kind of try whatever they want you to do
it's huge, man. Like I feel like, there should be a bucket next to a drum riser, like a virtual bucket. And you should just it's huge. You just take your ego, drop it in the bucket and just sit down and play drums,
Right.
Like just be there, because it's always the best stuff. For myself, I know you guys will say the same, but when you're in it like that and it's dialed and it feels like the out of body experience that we love when we're playing, it's because of that. It's not because, you just ripped the perfect fill, it's or whatever. It's because it's connecting and firing on all cylinders, and especially live, if you're touring and you get to do it night after night, you just want that moment back every night. Yep. And if it's not batting at that, 97, 98% of what you feel like you can be giving every night, 100 is what or 110 is what you're going for. Right. But it's like, it's big. And, I've that advice I've passed on to, younger drummers that are awesome. And, it's the honest truth. It's like, you just gotta stop playing drums,
right. Yeah.
And play music. You gotta get that brain there, you gotta get that. Yeah, it's really hard because it's an easy position, especially if you're, a capable drummer. Like when I was young, and all of us probably, Pat, you're the same. You're, playing, and one of my first bands, I was, the best musician in the band. So it was always looked to me to make it better, and so you develop this thing, this me thing, where it doesn't serve. As you get your ass handed to you, when you start playing with good musicians, and they'll say oh yeah, this kid's good, but then they'll start saying you got to stop doing this and this and this and this, because they see that you have it, you just haven't been shown or told, and it's up to you to rather than go what the heck does he know, man, that's it. That's it. You're still stuck in this other world, right? Because think about, we're behind the drums, we're in this other place, we're not playing, melodies and connected to the melody in that way like everybody else is, or in the harmony.
Yeah.
We're trying to be aware of the melody and the harmony and making sure we know what that's about, right, rather than, stepping all over it. Or totally. When you think that, are you stepping on the vocal, or are you helping the vocal with that fill? I still that's the thing that I'm on. It's am I stepping on the vocal there, or am I helping it there? And then we're still chasing, still trying to, for me, that's the stuff that I try to work on, and that's why sometimes when you're working from home or tracking from home, it'd be, to have that buffer of a producer saying nope or yep, that's why we got to get hip to session wire.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be good. And then, but the other thing is, I was thinking about this earlier when you were talking about it, session wire thing. Excuse me, is because I kind of just something you were saying a couple of minutes ago about like you come in and you go, I'll play, I'll give you everything you want. But I think there's also a point where you go, like Doug, my bass player friend, he goes, is it getting better or is it getting worse? Like,
Yeah,
he's
right.
kind of the same way. He's like, if it's still getting good, then we should keep doing takes. But I feel like there is a place, like sometimes you go, you got a great take on 3 and 4 and 5. Oh, and then something at the end of 5. And then you take 6 and you're going, and now, and then stuff starts happening. And it's not better. It's not good. And you go, you know what? It's good at 3 and 4. There's 2 really good takes there, and most of number 2 is good. I just didn't know how the intro went or whatever you say. You know what I mean? So I feel like there is everything you said is amazing, and a lot of people Pat, should hear that. There's that place though.
When you work
there's that place where you don't want to go too far.
When you work with the old school guys, they recognize that way easier and quicker. It's today. Sometimes the production styles have changed so much where it's almost like a trust thing, like a management thing. We have such, we can manipulate and move and create and do so much now that it's almost like a control thing. So I just to be safe, I need it. And just to be like, it's safety 1, safety 2, safety 3, safety 4. It's like, it's more of a production thing too, where it's like, if you could just trust on yourself that you've hired the right people for the right thing and they're going to give you the right thing. That therein lies that too. But I agree with you. When I worked with Greg Morrow up here, that was one of the biggest lessons because we went out and had a burger after. Like it was cool to hang with him, and I pestered him with everything. I was like, man, the way you run a session, like he runs a session, like the way you do it, and like how do you know what to play in that moment? And he's got years and years and years of A-list experience, and he just told me that I don't want to be comped and I don't want to be punched,
Right.
I want to give them the take that I think is best. Right. So I'm going to give them that, he's worked to that. And that was great advice for me. That's what I'm working at. And it was like his thing is saying like, I'm going to give them what I tell them so that they don't have a choice. So that they basically go like, that is perfect. That is the take. I don't need to comp you. I don't need to punch you, even though there's a few, but he knows that I saw him do this thing in the studio too, where he was like, they were started to kind of like the production team was starting to say, okay, Greg, give us this and give us this and give us, and he piped up in a calm manner. He's like, all right, let's just wait a second. Let me go ahead and screw it up for you first before, you go changing it on me. Like it was an interesting way of phrasing that, right? Let me go ahead and mess it up first so that we can, which he didn't. Which
is him bringing why you hired him to the table.
So then after the take was done, they immediately went like, hey, Greg, fantastic. My apologies. And so it was like, of course, it's Greg Morrow, right? Yeah. And he's a list and he's been doing this for years and years and years. But another huge lesson of like, let me be in it and let me show that I know what's best for this right now.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
And so for him, he had that switch that was like, and
that only comes with great experience, right? He's played a 4-minute pop song so many times that he knows, okay, you're going to set it up, you're going to play.
It's him, right? In that
all the classic things that you do in a song.
Right.
And so maybe somebody throwing at you, hey, I want to make sure you go pop, pop, pop-a-toom into that. It's like, actually, that's going to step on the vocal. But I know what you mean, and I'm going to give you that. Or,
or the version,
his version.
Of it, he knows, and that it does. It comes with experience and like as you move up. But it was just more of like the reminder for me on a personal note, going like, you know what? Don't succumb to what do they want. Give them what they want. Sit down and like think like this is. And sometimes they'll go like, that was awesome, or you finish your take and you go like, man, that was the take. And they go like, you know what? We're going to go in a different route. Why don't you come in? Let's talk about something, you know, and that's not up to you. You give them the best that you feel like you can do in that moment. Right. And production styles or things change. But, you know, if the song is there and it's telling you what to play, like, I just remember like seeing that with Greg and him telling me that that's what's in his brain. That's what it's in here going like, I'm going to make sure that, you know, they don't have a choice. You know, I'm going to give you the best thing that I feel like I can give you. And then it's up to them, sure. But that's where his brain is at. That's where his spirit is at when he's laying down that track. And that was heavy. For me, it was heavy. You know?
No kidding.
That's amazing, man. You've had some, really, you know, from hanging with him or Mike Fraser, all of those dudes, man. That's amazing. That's good.
Man. It's a constant lesson. Sometimes, you know, you get to work on these sessions and you're like, I'm charging for this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, no way. Like, I can't. It's like, you know, it's just, for me, I'm not a schooled guy. I never went to school, right? I pursued a different avenue. When my thing was that I was going to go to school, you know, I was playing in a lot of original bands. So I decided to go about it in a different way. I always felt like it was a regret. Like I didn't get my reading chops up and a thing. But as I've gone forward, I always want to take jazz studies and other things and learn everything that you learn in those school environments, you know, and being part of that. But I always felt like I lacked. But for me, my schooling always came from these teching things, you know. A lot of it is just like really seeing these things and being brought into, like, especially when the drums are dialed and we're past drums. Now we're in music, you know, the sounds are great. It's all good. Just to sit back and watch, you know, the interaction, like even I'll just speak with like Pat and Norm Fisher or Doug, and just listening to that relationship with what's going on in that and what's being relayed, or all these different guys. It's just sitting back and listening and watching, and it's huge for me on a personal note. Huge lessons, you know, and they still are. Every time I do a studio tech thing, you know, and I have to wear that hat, it's more of like, do my job, work with the production company, with the production team, make sure everything's happy, and then just listen,
absorb,
absorb, because like it's really unique thing, you know.
Actually, we've done a couple where it's like you weren't able to stay and listen because you had another thing going across town.
Yeah, which sucks, especially if you're on. That's what
there's been a couple of times where it was like you got it all going at 9, and then you had to actually do your session at 10 or 10:30, and I showed up at 10.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
which I would prefer hanging, because
double dips.
Too is like
double dips.
Like, exactly, we're always getting double dips for sure, but we're always getting Deacons as well, and we're always like hanging. And
oh yeah, some good food joints for
Brent,
sure.
when you come out, we're gonna take you, when we're allowed to. We'll take you to Deacon's Corner.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be good.
Shout out to Deacons.
I'm in.
Really
I
have some good hangs.
Yeah, I've wanted to come out to Vancouver to just hang for a long time. It's usually like, you know, in and out.
Well, the best is always like if you're on the road version is, you know, sometimes you can kind of go, hey, I'm going to stay for a day, or hey, I'm going to work with someone for a day or two after those shows that I'm here for. And then that's, you know, because it doesn't often make sense in your life. You go, well, I'm just going to go to Edmonton for 2 days and hit all those breakfast joints.
Yeah, right.
You know,
exactly. Yeah.
You know, but or if you pull into like a tour pulls into Edmonton, you got you know, on a day off, which is great. Then you got a little bit of, you got that, and then a show.
Right.
Yeah, which is fun.
Nice.
And that's the fun thing about touring too, is when you get those days off, you can call up your buddies. Like, oh, sweet, you can call up Brendan, call up somebody, and just hang. You were here. When was your last show that you were here at the Commodore?
It was.
Brendan, remember you did that house gig there?
Yeah, February 14th.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
February. That's
Valentine's Day.
That's right.
Yeah, that
just
was fun.
Before it all went down.
Yeah, shortly. And I wish I'd stayed around that time. I think JoJo flew me in. He flew me in a couple days before, and I spent most of those 2 days wandering around downtown by myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, so who was on the bill? It was JoJo and
Sons of Daughters, and then Flav was playing for Kristin Carter.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then and then
remember I sat on your kit, and this is a thing that I like to do. I don't know why, but I like to not change anything.
Right.
When I sit on somebody's things, just to see what that feels like. And you're so tall. Did I change the seat?
You might have, just a little bit, but it
Man,
wasn't much.
I just love. I don't know why it's like this almost this thing of like, you know what? especially because I don't want to be changing everything around for a drummer, like when you're backlining something too,
Mhm.
right? Because we
Yeah.
all know.
I like watching guys. I
Yeah.
like it when guys come in and they got to make their. Well, I do a Brad Wilk tribute generally with 3 toms, and they come in and I'm like, yeah, man, just go ahead, put up your own cymbals and snare and that. And then you come in and you've purposely not used any booms and there's booms everywhere. And it's just like, okay, he's a young guy. He just doesn't get it. It's like,
exactly.
You're here, get it in and out as fast as you can. The fact that you have half an hour before your sound check is different than at the end of the night.
Totally,
end of the night, I get to come, or whatever. Somebody comes up.
These are lessons that you'll get from a stage manager one day on your first tour when he comes over and kicks over your drum kit because you're still taking too long to tear it down.
Yeah.
Get off my stage. I saw that happen. Oof.
Oh,
yeah, a few times.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna wrap up here in a sec, but I just thought of this. What's the name of those guys from Kelowna that you did that record with Mike Fraser?
Oh, The Wild.
The Wild, yeah. Is that record? Have you heard it? Is it done?
Yeah, and this is part of the pandemic that just breaks my heart for a lot of us. But it's like, like we know Sean Austin, we know Andrew Hyatt, we know these, and The Wild I put in the same category. These bands and The Wild they're road dogs. These guys are like true rock and rollers. They got a lot of great stuff happening, and the music world, it's the business, it's fickle. We know that. And they're on this trajectory and the shit, just they're pushing so hard, and like Andrew, like Sean, and like, for some of us guys who are like session guys or workers, there's still work around. There's still, we're grateful. We count our blessings for what we get. We got to be true. Obviously the live thing, that balance is all out of whack, but it'll be there again one day, but these guys with this trajectory and everything that's just, so that record is kind of that, it's out, but we all know that you got to be touring this stuff.
Yeah.
And it was super fun and it sounds awesome.
I'm gonna go check it out because then I can check you out.
Yeah, check it out. I did I'm not on every track, but it was awesome. So that's kind of like where my heartbreak is. Like, I was talking to even Sean a couple of days ago and these guys, and it's like everybody's eager, but it's just like, my heart breaks for a lot of people in our industry who are just, rely, especially the techs and everybody that makes the shows happen. That we're just, we're waiting and it's a small group of us, which I know we all count our blessings that we can still work and still do things. It's not like it was, and sure, we're going to get back to it, but man, that with The Wild, it's like, they're just, literally e-brake.
Right.
Because they're over in Europe all the time, and they're doing this thing and doing that thing, and
Well, I've been thinking this, and I was texting with Julian Blaze. The other day, and another amazing drummer, and he sent one of those namastes for us for today, he goes, he's living out in the country and he's got this cool little shack and he's going, I'm just working on this so that when this whole thing ends and we're back to playing, I am going to be ready, and he's a funny, crazy guy. And and I just replied, I said, man, when this thing ends, everybody's going to, because everybody's making records, so everyone's going to want to tour. So there could be a bit of a clog in the whole thing with all that. I said, they're going to have to create a CERB for all the people that go to concerts, because they're going to go have to see every show because they haven't done anything. And they'll be alcoholics and they won't have any money. They're going to need CERB because they got to support the music industry.
You know what? I have this thing where I think once the green light goes, we will be essential service.
Yeah.
It's going to be like, people are just like, and it's tough. It's a tough one because it's such a niche industry that we're in. A lot of people don't get it. They don't understand, but it's a tough one, being sidelined and like, and everything that happens and just, waiting and, doing the best we can. But it's also kind of this thing where like, I don't know how many firsthand people we talked to, but if you go back, like after the Great Depression and after these things, people just want to rejoice. Yeah. They just want to just be out. And, we all know that we're, once green light goes, we'll be going, I'm already starting to worry about my childcare situation. It's like, that kind of thing, but
that's a good problem. That's a good problem to have.
It will be, and for now we got to hunker in and do what we can. And any work that I do, I know that you guys do, we're grateful for, you know,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
that is just like to still connect. Like most of the stuff I've been doing is from home. A few sessions in town, and I'll
Yeah.
tell you,
Mhm.
even just connecting in the same room, masked
Yeah.
on, everything, but just playing with those individuals again, man,
Yeah.
it's just like, you
So
know,
good.
oh, it's you know, we require this balance. It's almost spoiled. We're spoiled, you know,
Yeah.
that like we
Mhm.
get to have
Yeah.
this social balance that we require to like feel good.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's like everybody does, but to connect musically like that is like, you know, we
It's a
miss.
big
I know
part of
I
it.
miss it.
Yeah. Well, even to connect like this has been great, and I hate to put a
No,
hard
it
stop
is.
on it, but yeah, this has been awesome. I'm gonna wrap this up, but just hang on for a couple minutes after I hit end. I
Okay.
just want to thank you guys again. But thanks everybody for tuning in. Holy smokes, this was almost 3 hours, which was
Yeah, I know there wasn't a plan, but
great.
How
We're
long
gonna,
do you usually go? About an hour?
about an hour, yeah.
hour and a half. Yeah.
We'll do it.
Well,
do
you
another.
told him. You
I
told
know.
him.
Yeah, he warned me, and I didn't take it seriously. So
You know what? You can just edit this, get all the good stuff out of it, because who's gonna want to listen to us for 3 hours, right?
I think there are lots of people. I would road trips. Anyways,
Yeah, road
thanks
trip.
again. Thanks again, you guys. Hang on for a second after
Okay.
I hit
Thanks for having
end,
us,
but,
Brandon.
yeah,
Thanks.
thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks.